The first years at Xenon Academy think it's a normal day, until Professor JRO unveils a device to find any monsters hiding among them. Argon goes first, hitting a quality of 4 and quantity 17, already better than last year's average. Then Furion steps up, hitting quality 6 and quantity 20, making the entire room gasp. But then the sleepy kid Damien just wakes up and touches the orb, and crushes everyone's pride with a quality of 9 and a wild 67. Now all eyes are on Asta. He tries to lay low, but the system flashes 10 before it just errors out he broke the limit. Asta forces a rerun, faking a harmless 3 and 15. Stick with me here because there's a huge reason our boy is hiding his god-tier power. Not long ago, Asta was a troubleshooter for House Declan, and on a mission he stole a powerful tome. Assassins tracked him down, but he wiped them all out, leaving just one alive for a little interrogation. Asta pins the hunter with magic, demanding to know how to use the tome, but the guy has no clue. And that's when Asta realizes that Declan has no idea what this book is worth, or they wouldn't have kept it in some rusty basement. Still, they sent a whole hit squad chasing him down for it. The hunter begs Asta to just hand over the tome, promising he'll ask the family head for mercy. Yeah, that's a hard pass from Asta, who makes it clear the hunter is about to die. But suddenly a portal rips open behind him. This is where things get completely insane. Out steps a cool-looking dude with a cane. It's Farron Declan, the head of House Declan himself. Farron calmly asks for the tome back, saying they can have a quick chat after. Asta is completely overwhelmed by the sheer power standing right in front of him. He was a troubleshooter for over 10 years, 5 of them with House Declan, but this is the first time he's ever seen the big boss. House Declan is the #1 magic family on the continent, and Farron is rumored to be the strongest mage in its history. Asta can feel the danger rolling off him in waves, but he decides to play it cool. He shamelessly asks Farron if he's here to steal someone else's hard-earned loot. Farron just laughs at the audacity, but Asta gets nervous. He knows what it means for the head of the house to show up personally. Asta has to admit Farron's aura is the most overwhelming pressure he has ever felt. Farron states flat out that he could kill Asta and take the tome easily, but he wants to talk. He offers Asta his old job back. Just return the tome, and all his sins will be forgotten. Farron even admits that Asta's talent is remarkable, and that he hates to see it go to waste. He's impressed that someone from the Gray Zone has managed to master such effective techniques. Farron sweet-talks the offer, telling Asta he could soar to new heights with the house's support. But after all the promises, he ends with the one thing that really matters, returning the tome. Asta suddenly agrees to his terms, and you can see Farron let out a sigh of relief. However, Asta then says he has one condition, and it's the most ruthless demand possible. He tells Farron to hand over the seat as head of the house. Let that sink in for a second. To prove he's serious, Asta executes the hostage. This enrages Farron, who tells Asta he just chose the path to his own death. Asta knows that Farron is probably right, but he attacks anyway, wanting to measure the power gap. Farron easily blocks his blue attack with a simple red shield. Farron realizes it's time to teach this kid a lesson about who's at the top of the food chain. Standing there casually, Farron unleashes a powerful magic blast that sends Asta flying backwards. Asta barely avoids getting fried, and it finally sinks in what kind of power the head of the house really has. He can't find a single opening, and the second Farron sees him hesitate, he launches another attack. Farron tells him there's no need to measure their strength, they aren't even on the same level. Asta finds himself facing a massive magical attack that's impossible for him to evade. He gets slammed, but Farron holds back, letting Asta know he's not ready to kill him yet. He just wants to talk. So Asta asks him what would happen if he actually agreed to return to House Declan. Farron replies that he wouldn't believe him. Asta is glad they're on the same page, and immediately starts cooking up another magic attack. Asta looks Farron dead in the eye, and says that he is done being a messenger, done being a dog. Lightning erupts around him as he pours every last drop of magic into one final blinding attack. He leaps forward, roaring that he's not going back in the kennel, but his ultimate strike just fizzles out against Farron's shield. And now Farron decides it's time to teach him what real power feels like. Before he can even react, a blast of magic slams into Asta, sending his mind reeling until Fen is just looking down on him. Farron casually asks him if he finally understands the difference between them now. Asta actually admits Farron is strong, then asks if he can go back to being a troubleshooter. But Farron shakes his head. He wants Asta to be more than just a troubleshooter. He wants Asta to become the head of the Bongshan family, an offer so insane Asta is left completely stunned. But House Declan is powerful, strong enough to make a play for the throne itself. Asta gets it now. Make him a family head, then force him to swear loyalty as a vassal. Farron's real goal was always control. With a sigh, he reaches into his storage space and pulls out the ancient tome. Farron smiles, thinking he's finally won, saying he wanted both Asta and the book all along. But just as he reaches for it, Asta sets the tome on fire, leaving Farron in absolute shock. "What are you doing?" Farron screams, but Asta just tells him he was never getting it. Now his death will be horrible. And this is where it gets crazy. Asta reveals he never did this for money. Turns out Declan's young master used forbidden magic to devour one of Asta's teammates. And after the incident, House Declan just covered the whole thing up. Farron realizes this was never a negotiation, it was revenge. Asta corrects him. This wasn't revenge. It was a hunt for justice. He calls his recent work a retirement tour, and says these are his final words. With that, Farron engulfs him in flames, telling him to burn and regret his choices forever. But as he burns, Asta screams back that he has nothing, absolutely nothing to regret. He was willing to throw his life away if it meant he wouldn't be Declan's dog. As the fire consumes him, he feels free, swearing if he's ever reborn, his revenge will be absolute. Suddenly, everything stops. Time itself freezes. The tome in his hands is somehow still active. Magic circles flare to life all over his body, and it's the last thing he sees before darkness takes him. Asta opens his eyes to find himself in a dirty alleyway dressed as a beggar. He looks around, and the horrifying truth dawns on him. He's back in the past, a kid in the gray zone. He rushes to a lake and sees his reflection, confirming it. He's young again. You and I can both see it. The fire mark on his chest is still there, a scar from the future. He has no idea how it happened, but he's certain the tome's magic is responsible. And if the head of a major house chased him down for it, that book must be a legendary item. So now what? He's been given a second chance, and this time he's not just going to fight, he's going to win. He thinks about his original mission, his true objective. It wasn't just his dream. It was his comrade's dream too. They once talked about why they were stuck at the bottom. His friend told him their lives would be different if only they were educated. They wouldn't have to be slaves to the rich trash who used them. That's why Asta wanted to retire and build a library. He dreams of a library where anyone, rich or poor, noble or commoner, can read freely. Actually, screw that. He's going to build a massive tower instead. He doesn't even need a reason for the tower. He just wants to build it. And on the very first page of the very first book, he'll write down House Declan's secret techniques for the whole world to see. He's already picturing their faces. The only problem is how to get that manual. As he's lost in his brilliant evil plan, a kick smashes into his face. Some angry kid is yelling at him. The kid keeps kicking him, shouting that Asta was supposed to be saving his seat. But trust me, you and I both know this Asta isn't the same weak kid anymore. He grabs the bully's leg, and the real story begins. He screams that he got hit 7 times, but he's going to pay it back 70 times over. Asta throws a punch right to the chest, but his body is so weak he sprains his own wrist. He's in total shock, and while he's still dazed, he gets clocked in the face again. The beatdown continues, and the kicks are so painful, Asta is literally brought to tears. Asta finally sees an opening, shoving the guy into the lake and making a mad dash for it. The guy climbs out, yelling about him, running away. But Asta shouts back, it's a tactical retreat. He swears he's going to remember that face for the rest of his life. As a veteran troubleshooter, he promises to remember every single hit. Quitting isn't an option. Revenge is coming. Hiding in an alley, he just stares at his sprained wrist. He can't believe how pathetic his body is breaking from just one punch. He decides to focus on training. And this is where the story gets really weird. A kid with a glowing red eye appears, asking if he's hungry. Asta is shocked, asking if the kid knows him, but the boy just says he has no idea. You can tell this kid looks like a noble, probably one who got tossed out during a power struggle. Asta immediately sizes him up as a walking, talking, pretty little time bomb. The kid introduces himself as Damien. Asta is just creeped out, asking this kid point blank if he's mentally okay. Damien says he doesn't have a mom, and Asta fires back that he doesn't have a dad, like it's some kind of twisted orphan contest. Asta tells him they should just go their separate ways. He wants nothing to do with a time bomb like Damien. But a few moments later, Damien is still standing there. Asta, completely creeped out, has to ask if he's leaving or not. Shockingly, Damien says he's going with him. A little voice in Asta's head screams to just smack the kid. Instead, he just tells Damien to get lost. But then Damien touches his head right where he was injured. With a creepy little smile, Damien assures him he can heal it, summoning a glowing magic circle. At first, Asta thinks it's some basic healing magic, but he quickly realizes he is dead wrong. This isn't just any magic. This is the light of healing, a secret technique of the legendary House Blander. House Blander, the family that was destroyed by House Declan. Asta realizes he just stumbled into something incredibly dangerous. He starts racking his brain. Why would a kid from House Blander be in the gray zone? He figures that at this point in time, the Blander family should still be at the height of its power. Lost in thought, Asta says Damien's name. The kid perks up, revealing his other eye is green. He has 2 different colored eyes. The sight of those eyes triggers a memory Asta had completely forgotten. Something absolutely terrifying. Okay, you are not ready for this reveal. This kid. He grows up to become the monster of Blander. After Damien finishes healing him, he just crouches down and starts counting ants, leaving Asta totally bewildered. Before his regression, back when he was a troubleshooter, he and his team got a mission from the Declan family to investigate a monster at the Blander estate. On the way there, Asta and his crew were expecting some kind of ogre, maybe a troll. But what they found when they arrived was a scene of pure, absolute carnage. It was Damien ripping people apart, laughing like a madman while casting endless healing magic on himself. That's how he got his name, the Monster of Blandor, the butcher who simply refuses to die. Asta shakes his head, trying to push the horrifying memory away and focus on the now. Why is the direct heir to the Blandor family here? It makes absolutely no sense. Just then, Damien breaks the silence with a simple suggestion they should go eat. He says his mom told him you have to eat to be healthy, blaming Asta's weakness on an empty stomach. And Asta has to admit, the creepy little kid has a point. So Asta asks him if he has any money. Damien says yes and pulls out a pouch stuffed with gold coins. Asta's entire face lights up. Instantly, he throws an arm around Damien and declares them best friends. Damien is confused, but Asta just tells him that friends share things, and you and I both know what he's really after. Damien completely falls for it. Asta suggests they grab a bite, and the kid quickly agrees. After eating, they head back to a shelter. For the first time, Asta's stomach is actually full. And here's where this whole story takes a weird turn. Damien is stunned to see there's a house here. He'd been sleeping outside and casually says he doesn't have a dad. Asta tries to correct him, but Damien just refuses to believe it. Asta then asks if he has a mom. The kids answer, nope. His logic is twisted but simple. If they're not with him, they don't exist. It finally clicks for Asta, and he's just trying to process the kid's reality. He asks Damien how long he's been alone. The kid says after he ran away, he slept 10 times. Asta's mind starts racing. Is this kid being chased? What does 10 times even mean? He assumes it means 10 days. But then Damien adds that he took naps too, sometimes twice in one day. However, the grand total of all sleep naps included is 10. So Asta does the math and realizes he's only been gone 3 or 4 days. Just a kid, making Asta realize even monsters were innocent once. Since Damien's all alone, Asta decides to play nanny, hoping to form a connection with the powerful Blandor family. He's playing the long game, knowing this connection will be a huge advantage against the Declan family later. But first, there's one thing burning in Asta's mind, payback for the guy who hit him 57 times. Before sleeping, Asta warns Damien not to bother him, because he has something important to do. And Damien gets it instantly. Asta is about to practice his breathing technique. In his past life, Asta's magic foundation was trash, which is why he had to sneak into noble houses to steal their spells. He nearly died over and over, but he managed to grab a few spells like the body-hardening technique used by knights. He grabbed several others, but it wasn't until he was about to die for real that he saw true power. Now, pay attention because this time he's aiming higher. He's going to learn his enemy's ultimate technique, the Heavenly Origin technique. This is a legendary art that can absorb and handle every single attribute of mana. He'd memorized it for research, but never thought he'd actually use it. And it all begins with breathing. The moment he activates it, a wave of insane power surges through him, feeling like lava in his veins. The pain is unbearable, but Asta is absolutely determined to push through it. Then he sees it, impurities are literally being burned out of his body. This technique forces mana through his circuits, purifying them completely. Asta dives deep into the process, feeling like he's submerged in a pure mana pool. When he finally wakes up from the absolute agony, he sees that Damien has fallen asleep. He's shocked. He looks inside his body and finds 0 impurities left in his circuits. Not only that his mana is now completely purified way beyond his past life. Still, he knows this isn't enough to defeat Declan. But one thing's for sure, his chances just got a whole lot better. He reminds himself that he's a troubleshooter, and they never give up. Later, he helps Damien change his hair to brown, and gets him new clothes for a disguise. To top it all off, he hands him a cap to wear. Damien asks what's next. Asta just smirks and says, "We're gonna cause some chaos." And a few moments later, he finds him, the guy who hit him 57 times. The punk spots him and asks where he's been. Before the dude can even finish his trash talk, Asta buries a fist in his gut. The shockwave of pain instantly knocks him out cold. Asta smirks with satisfaction. Yep, he definitely got the right guy. But he's not done with him yet. Not even close. The new plan, 123 hits. The commotion brings out the rest of the house, and they step out to see their youngest brother is behind all this. Asta's just imagining all the painful things he's about to do to them. He lets his anger loose and just starts beating everyone down. He even pours mana into his fists, making every single punch that much more painful. Damien watches from the side, enjoying the show. And trust me, this is where things get truly insane. The kid starts healing them so Asta can beat them up more. The very first person he heals is the main guy Asta has a grudge with. The dude actually thinks Damien is helping him right before Asta grabs him, reminding him about the hits he still owes. After his fists get tired, Asta just casually switches to using canes. He whips the main guy so hard his backside is literally steaming, but he's still not finished with him. He calls Damien over for a heal just so he can do it all over again. To this guy, he's not seeing kids, he's seeing a pack of devils hungry for his life. After beating them down the entire day, Asta finally decides he's had his fun. And to add insult to injury, he thanks his victims for their help. They were great punching bags and he feels amazing. He managed to land over 100 hits on each person, making it over 1,000 total. And yeah, he's pretty proud of himself. The leader finally asks if they can leave, and Asta says sure. But then the dude reminds Asta that this is his house, a subtle way of telling Asta to get lost. Oh, Asta picks up on it. He stares him down with a terrifying aura that forces the guy and his crew back into a corner. But just then Asta feels it. Someone is getting closer, and he can tell this person is skilled like a professional troubleshooter. That's when it dawns on him they're probably here for Damien. Asta's surprised they were found so quickly, even though he was being careful. He knows this is a bad spot, but he's not about to just sit and wait. After all, he was a troubleshooter in his past life. He's been forced into way worse situations than this. So he gathers every drop of mana he can and compresses it again and again. With this, he creates a single mana bullet, aiming it right at the person charging toward them. He fires the shot, but the guy suddenly drops into a knee slide, dodging it and screaming out Damien's name, calling him Master. The dude slides right over to Damien, and it turns out Damien actually knows him. This is Alfredo, a butler to his family. He hugs Damien tight, but the kid tells him to get off. Alfredo refuses, saying he has to bring him back to the family. Asta just watches from the back as this super weird family drama unfolds right in front of him, and he finally puts it together. Damien must have run away from home. Once the introductions are done, Alfredo invites Asta to come back with them, seeing how fond Damien is of him. Asta actually thinks about it. He knows they're a prestigious family, but he's still trying to figure out what they really want. Still, he was planning on forming a connection with them sooner or later. And since the family's land is on the way to the city, it's actually super convenient for him. The Xenon Academy is also close by, and its library is top tier. Asta plans to scope it out before building his own. So after weighing his options, Asta accepts. A little while later, they arrive at the family's estate. Asta steps out of the carriage, realizing this is his first official visit. Since it's late, Alfredo suggests they all get some rest. He asks a maid Lancency to take care of the two kids. Lance gives Damien an ice-cold stare, and Damien knows immediately that he is so busted. Later, Alfredo goes to see the matron Gammo. Alfredo tells the woman that Damien was in the gray zone and that he just brought him back home. Now Gammo is an impulsive woman, and trust me, you're about to see why. She unleashes an attack spell out of pure rage before even hearing her son is fine. She lets out a huge sigh of relief, and so does Alfredo. He knew it would have been a death sentence for anyone who dared to hurt Damien. Apparently Gammo used to be called the Blood Witch, and her fury is legendary for being unstoppable. Gammo then praises Alfredo for a job well done. But before he leaves, Alfredo tells her there's one more thing. He explains that Damien's new friend Asta noticed his presence before he even revealed himself, and in reaction, Asta had already prepared a counterattack. Alfredo reveals that the kid was ready to fire a mana bullet right at him. Gammo is impressed when she hears this, admitting it's an incredible talent for some random kid from the gray zone to possess. And because of this, Alfredo tells the matron that he has a special favor to ask of her. The next day, Asta wakes up to a shocking request from Alfredo, asking him to become his successor. Asta is floored when he hears this, and Alfredo is relieved by his reaction. He's confident Asta will take the rare opportunity. But Alfredo is left stunned when Asta flat out refuses the offer. You and I both know that was a massive power move. Alfredo thinks he must have gone deaf that he's not hearing this right. Even Damien is shocked that Asta rejected him. Asta admits that the offer is huge, but he tells Alfredo he prefers things exactly the way they are now. Alfredo immediately concludes that, since Asta was born in the gray zone, he must have learned magic through raw, natural talent, which in his mind is why he's so arrogant. Alfredo then tries to humble Asta, telling him the world is huge, and he knows nothing of its dangers. Alfredo compares Asta to a goblin in a massive canyon, but Asta corrects him, saying he feels a lot more like a wyvern. And Alfredo is completely shocked to hear this comeback. Alfredo decides to show Asta what real power looks like, taking him to the butler training house to watch a session. And trust me, you're about to see what happens when you offer a golden ticket to a guy who couldn't care less. Asta looks over the kids, admitting their training is so precise they seem more like soldiers than children. Still, he's not impressed. Not in the slightest. He tells Alfredo he can feel their aura, which actually seems to please the old man. So Alfredo pushes again, asking if he's ready to accept and shine just like the kids in front of him. But Asta shuts him down flat, saying he hates the light. Just then, a trainee named Winster raises his hand. Winster has a suggestion. He's convinced Asta is just a talentless punk who rejected the offer out of fear. On top of that, he claims Asta can't truly understand their greatness and wants to demonstrate it for him. He's basically picking a fight. Alfredo can see the kid's arrogance, but surprisingly, he allows it. He asks Asta if he's up for it. Asta gets it to these guys. He's a rival who just appeared out of nowhere. He knows they just see a lucky nobody who's being offered the successor position they've all been bleeding for. Asta accepts the duel but asks Alfredo if he can choose his opponent. Alfredo tells him to go for it. Asta points to Winster, but then he also points to 4 other trainees. Now, pay attention because this is where things get absolutely insane. Asta demands a 5-on-1 fight. Winster is completely stunned. Asta just tells him he's free to back out if he's scared. This makes Alfredo laugh out loud. That's the kind of fire his successor needs. He asks Asta if he can back up his words and Asta says yes. So Alfredo makes a bet last 1 minute, and you get a gift. Lose and you have to become my successor. Asta can feel the sheer desperation in his voice, but he isn't fazed by the challenge at all. With the terms agreed upon, Alfredo tells them to get into the ring. The instructor has to ask Alfredo if this whole thing isn't a bit too dangerous. Alfredo admits that it is, but says Asta needs his arrogance knocked down a peg. The instructor panics, not wanting to harm Damon's guest. He rushes over to Damon, telling him his friend is in serious danger. The instructor wants Damon to stop the fight, but to his shock, Damon is hyped for the show. He even wants to join, but Lance reminds him GMA would kill him. Alfredo just tells the instructor to start the match already. The instructor realizes he's out of options, having tried his best to stop this duel. Lance notices the tension and leaves the room, but warns Damon not to get involved. Damon smiles, promising he won't. The instructor then walks over to explain the rules to the kids. He tells them it's a free-for-all match. The duel will only stop when one side surrenders. However, he lets them know that he has the authority to stop the duel anytime he wants. Winster just glares at Asta with pure hatred, ready to crush him and expose him as a fraud. The instructor starts the match, and Asta immediately buries a mana-infused punch right into Winster's gut. He goes flying back in pain. Before he can even register what happened, Asta has taken down the other 4 trainees. Okay, let's pause. We all just saw a fight end before it even began. They're all on the ground except Winster. Asta stares at him like a villain, promising to give him some of the best experiences of his life. He says this while rolling mana bullets in his hands. Lesson 1, he says, is to never underestimate the little guy. Winster is already crapping his pants, realizing that Asta is casually wielding actual mana bullets. He knows what that power means. Asta continues with his lesson. The second one is to stop judging people so easily. He says this as he unleashes a storm of mana bullets on Winster and his fallen comrades. They all scream in agony from the intense pain. And for the third lesson, the world is vast, and it is bitter. Asta moves in on Winster and finishes him off with a single punch. He smiles down at them, saying he'll personally teach them these lessons. Winster just screams that he's a lunatic. He yells that Asta isn't even using magic against them, but Asta calmly argues that it is. Asta continues his lesson by kicking Winster in the head, telling him that this is physical magic. And there you have it. The entire room is stunned as Asta demolishes these elite trainees like they're nothing but his personal puppets. Alright, let's watch Asta's power leave this instructor completely speechless. He's wondering just how many times that magic was compressed. Based on its insane power, Alfredo figures it had to be compressed at least 4 or 5 times. That's when the cold truth hits him. If he'd been on the receiving end of those mana bullets, it would have done some serious damage. He realizes Asta has perfect control over his own mana. And on top of that, he's just really good at fighting. In the back, Damien is healing the guys so Asta can keep the sparring session going. Just then, Lance walks into the room with Gamo. She immediately calls for Alfredo, and when the instructor sees the matron, he breathes a sigh of relief. They're finally saved. Gamo demands to know what's going on, and he tries to pass it off as just a simple test. A test Gamo can't believe it. Asta is absolutely wrecking these trainees while Damien plays medic from the sidelines. Gamo orders Alfredo to round up the trainees and tell them to stand down. She tells Damien and Asta to hit the showers. Then she looks the instructor dead in the eye and says "You're fired." And trust me, the shock on his face is priceless. Later that night, Gamo tells Alfredo that even if his intentions were good, he went way too far. Alfredo admits his mistake, telling Gamo he's ready to accept his punishment. Gamo asks if Damien helped Asta during the duel, but Alfredo says no. Asta is just a natural-born brawler. Alfredo then explains that Asta used the magic bullet again, but he compressed it multiple times to boost the power. The moment Gamo hears this, she understands Asta has incredible mana control. She may not have seen the bullet, but she saw Asta taking down 5 trainees at once like it was nothing. She knows that handling a magic bullet is difficult for even a high-level mage. She asks about the successor proposal, but Alfredo tells her Asta rejected it without a second thought. Gamo realizes she needs to completely re-evaluate this kid. She tells Alfredo to bring Asta to her. Asta soon arrives to find Gamo and Damien, who's just chilling and eating cookies. Before Gamo says anything, she puts a box on the table for Asta. Asta looks surprised, so Gamo reminds him that Alfredo had promised him a gift. He's even more shocked that Gamo is giving it to him. She tells him to open the box and he finds a high-grade item inside. Asta is stunned, because even in the powerful Blandor family, only recruits for the top 5 mage divisions get this. And I know you're thinking it because Asta is too, there's always a catch. As if reading his mind, Gamo tells him he can take the gift with no strings attached. She says it's for helping her son in the gray zone and also serves as an apology for what happened earlier. Asta isn't falling for any traps, so he asks if he'll be forced to join Blandor if he uses the item. She says no. He then asks if it's poisoned, but her answer is still no. Asta is shocked that there are seriously no conditions. He cautiously thanks the lady for the gift. Right after that, Gamo says she has a proposal. The moment Asta hears that word, he knows he was right. Gamo reveals her plan to get Asta admitted to the academy to attend with Damien. Asta is confused, so Gamo explains that Damien was supposed to go last year, but refused, so they delayed it until now. But she never expected her son to just run away from home like he did. She can clearly see that Damien likes Asta, which is why she's making this offer. Asta gets it. She needs him to make sure Damien actually stays at the academy this time. Plus, Asta sees this as a golden opportunity for himself. The academy could give him a ton of powerful connections, so it's not a bad idea. He knows it's a good deal, but at the same time it feels like he's being put on a leash. He decides to tell her he'll think about it. Gamo accepts his answer and says she'll wait for his reply. Then she asks Asta why he rejected the offer to be Alfredo's successor. Asta can sense Alfredo eavesdropping. And you know what that means, time to troll him. He simply tells her his knees are too precious to him. In other words, he doesn't like bowing to people. The verbal slap hits the butler hiding by the door perfectly. When Asta gets back to his room, he uses the item and is blown away by the changes happening inside his body. His mana levels shoot through the roof with just 10% absorbed. His physique is even starting to change into a flameborn's. But what really impresses Asta is that absorbing this item doesn't leave a single impurity in his body. As for the academy, he's already molded over and has his answer ready. He knows joining the academy is the fastest way to find a sponsor. The perks are huge, but at the same time it feels like he's walking straight into a trap. So Asta decides to go for a run to clear his head. He steps out of his room and just then someone asks if he's Asta. He turns to see a guy with platinum blonde hair sizing him up. Since Damon is a direct descendant, Asta figures this guy has to be a relative. So what does he do? You and I are about to watch him lie through his teeth. The dude is thrown off. The guy in front of him looks exactly like the description he was given. Asta doubles down on the lie, claiming the light can change his hair color, meaning a lot of things could be different. The guy buys it, figuring he has the wrong person, and turns to leave while apologizing. But right on cue, Alfredo rushes over, shouting Asta's name at the worst possible time. He's back on about the whole butler thing. And right there, Alfredo calling his name completely blows his cover to the stranger. The guy immediately spins around, saying he knew it because Asta has an unpleasant face. With no way out, Asta finally admits that yeah, he's the one he's looking for. This pisses the guy off, but seeing Alfredo there, he decides to back down for now. He tells Asta to come to the mage hall later so he can teach him some manners with his fists. Once he leaves, Alfredo asks Asta if something's up. He just says no. But deep down, Asta has been itching to let off some steam. And this guy seems like the perfect test subject. Asta's plan: head to the hall later and beat him senseless. Asta then asks Alfredo if he can see Gamo right now. He's immediately taken to her office. Gamo is surprised Asta wants to meet so early. She asks if he's made up his mind about their offer, and he says yes. Shockingly, he tells Gamo that he plans to enroll in the academy just like they wanted. Gamo is definitely surprised to hear this, but you can see the relief on her face. She tells Asta they'll prepare everything immediately. As Asta leaves the room, Alfredo enters. He asks Gamo about Asta, and she confirms he accepted the offer. Alfredo is overjoyed celebrating their win. Turns out they plan to cover Asta's fee for the first semester. But after that, Asta will have a tough time paying tuition. Alfredo believes Asta will get desperate because he'll be eager to learn more. Okay, let's pause here. This is Alfredo's plan to swoop in and help. Pretty messed up, right? Alfredo apologizes for being loud and heads to the kitchen. After he leaves, Gamo realizes why he's so happy. He finally has a real chance to make Asta his successor, but at the same time, Gamo thinks it's a pretty sloppy plan. Alfredo, however, is confident because the old head butler used the exact same trick on him. Asta decides it's time and heads to the mage hall where that jerk challenged him. He opens the door and a mage with his face hidden by a hood asks why he's there. Since Asta doesn't know the brat's name, he starts to stutter. Then suddenly the mage gets all excited, saying he's been waiting. He tells Asta to follow him into another room, warning him to mind his head. Asta enters and is immediately hit by a storm of flying notes. Now he understands the warning. He soon finds a man who introduces himself as Wenji von Blondor. He asks Asta if he came to see his little brother, but Asta is completely lost. He wonders if that brat from before is his brother. Apparently there's one thing Asta remembers about mages from his past life. They all share a common trait. It starts with disheveled hair, which they eventually pull out, stopping it from growing back. Asta has basically broken this down into 3 stages. Stage 1 is denial, hiding the hair loss with their robes. Stage 2 is giving up and just showing their bald head. And then there's stage 3, where they just accept reality and shave their heads completely. But stage 4 is where they start researching how to make the impossible possible. They'll try to create magic to regrow their hair, but not a single one has ever succeeded. However, none of these characteristics seem to apply to Wenji, who's standing right in front of him. And that's where we leave it a new player in the game. Trust me, this is about to get even crazier. Alright, you and I are about to watch a simple meeting turn into a life or death gamble. Asta is honestly impressed that a guy this young is already a vice dean at the academy. He knows Wee must be seriously skilled. You don't get that job on name alone. Wee just smirks, calling Asta different. Then G brings up the Xenon Academy, proving he knows all about Asta's big offer. He even congratulates Asta, calling it a huge opportunity for him to grow. Turns out G's an alum too, from the 145th class. But Asta's face says it all. Dude, I didn't ask for your life story. G catches the vibe and quickly apologizes, blaming it on excitement and talking nonsense. He says they should get to the point, but first he has one very important question. Would you be willing to risk your life for a friend? Asta is completely thrown by this. G explains, this is all about the Blondor family's reputation, pulling a book from his storage. Asta's eyes go wide. And yeah, here it is. G will give him the tome, but only if he risks it all. This isn't just any book. It's the Blondor family secret, the Healing Light. Meanwhile, Gammo is in her garden thinking about Damien's academy move, relieved it went smoothly. She also thinks about Asta, Damien's new and very good friend. She knows Asta has a good heart, even if Alfredo calls him a jerk. Gammo gets it, every kid is a little shameless. She's just happy that Asta didn't change at all after learning about Damien's background. People like Asta are rare, which is exactly why she wants him by her son's side. But Gammo knows a bitter truth. Asta is a free bird that can't be caged. Still, she's determined to find some way to keep him close to them. For Damien's sake, she'll do whatever it takes. Back in the hall, Asta's mind is racing. Why offer him their secret technique? He's trying to piece it together. Could this all be a trap? G is trying to read him too, but gets nothing. It's like staring at a mask with no identity behind it. G warns him to think his answer through carefully and not get blinded by the prize. Asta looks at him, ready to give his answer right now. His response is simple and direct. If I can do it, I will. If not, I won't. Okay, let that sink in. G tells him just hearing the request puts his life on the line. And if he refuses, G might have to kill him. With zero fear, Asta tells him to try it. Everyone's destined to live only once. Of course, this is technically Asta's second chance at life. G unleashes a terrifying aura, but Asta doesn't even flinch. Realizing he won't break, Wee just smiles. You passed the test. He tells Asta he needs someone trustworthy, but it can't be anyone from inside his own family. After a bit more talk, Ouija finally reveals his true intentions. This isn't some family power struggle. The real problem, he's under surveillance by the Declan family. Asta is shocked. He immediately asks why the Declan family would be watching him. Since Asta already proved he doesn't fear death, G reveals his huge dilemma. It turns out he's been researching the Declan family's origin magic, and just had a major breakthrough. He somehow managed to obtain the Declan's heavenly origins magic, a technique exclusive to their family. The moment Asta hears this, his expression changes. He realizes he's sitting across from a dead man. He asks G if he's researching it just to find a way to destroy it. That's when G reveals the truth. He didn't just study it, he found a way to improve it to make it perfect. Asta concludes he's sitting in front of an absolute madman with a death wish. G just claims the urge to carry out the research was too tempting to resist. G is a complete lunatic, but Asta realizes something else. The timing matches up perfectly. In his past life, while the Declans were wiping out the Blondor family, G was busy with this exact research. And you and I just realized why Declan attacked. He saw the potential of this perfect magic, and he wanted it for himself. It finally clicks for Asta. Declan's insane strength, he must have absorbed the power somehow. Stick with me here because a genius needs help. WJI asks Asta for a favor, and Asta hits him with one simple question. Why me? WJI admits he can't report his research to the family because he's sure there's a mole, but he can't figure out who. Asta guesses it might be a secretary, but WJI shoots that down, thinking the problem is probably with the acquisition route. WJI says the moment he knew he was exposed, he started making moves. Asta asks why not just side with Declan. It seems like the easier option. But WJI is firm, saying he has his own personal reasons for not joining them. That's where Asta comes in. As an outsider with no ties to the Blondor family, he's the perfect man for the job. Turns out the mission is a joint research project, and WJI has hit a dead end. WJI promises a proper reward, asking him to deliver a thesis to Professor Perun of Xenon Academy. The prize is the healing light spell. But Asta sees an opening here, and you're going to want to see this move. He looks WJI in the eye and proposes a better deal. He'll take the healing light spell now and the 1,000 circle spell once it's complete. Asta is going all in, double or nothing. WJI is shocked, calling Asta a shameless jerk. But since the mission is so critical, he has no choice but to say yes. He promises Asta the completed spell, but he adds that he has one condition of his own. He needs Asta to help him with the research before the entire thing is finished. And Asta agrees without hesitation, no problem at all. Taking the thesis, Asta jokes that he can't read before admitting he's kidding. Then he gets serious, asking if Professor Perun can be trusted. WJI explains that he and Perun were rivals back in their academy days. They were always trying to one-up each other, but the rivalry died when WJI returned to his family. Asta can't believe he's about to meet another lunatic, just like WJI. Back in his room, he finds a mountain of books waiting for him. WJI even included a letter outlining the exact order he should study them in to build up his knowledge. Without wasting a moment, he gets to work. Asta starts organizing the books, admitting WJI is a true genius. He immediately adds WJI to the top of his list of book sponsors. He's already planning to put the Healing Light book in the tower he wants to build. That way everyone will have a chance to read it, but he knows he has to clear it with Damien first. I know what you're thinking. And yeah, you and I can see his grand plan taking shape, a world where everyone has access to magic. For Asta meeting, WJI was a game changer. Meanwhile, WJI is glad he met someone so useful and interesting. On top of that, he's impressed that Asta showed absolutely no fear of death. It was only a bluff. But the fact that Asta didn't even flinch made him even more interested. WJI could see it in his eyes. This was a man who did not fear death. He's thrilled to find someone competent, unlike the usual idiots he works with. WJI can tell Asta is hiding things, and he actually likes that. He basically sees Asta as a kindred spirit who shares his ambitious dreams. Soon it's time for the academy. Asta packs his things and gets into the school uniform. Lance shows up to get him, explaining there's just some simple registration paperwork to do when they arrive. Then she reveals that both he and Damien are exempt from the entrance exam. Lance compliments him on the uniform, and Asta, being a gentleman, thanks her for the kind words. Asta puts two and two together. The exemption is a privilege reserved for prestigious families. They call it special admission, and Asta is more than happy to take it. At the carriage, Damien and his mother are waiting. She tells the boys to stay safe, and Asta reassures her. Gamo also tells Asta she's praying for him to achieve all of his goals. Asta smiles and thanks her. But he knows he'll achieve his results, no doubt. The academy is full of opportunities, and he plans to grab them all. And of course, he's looking forward to meeting his beloved new classmates. On the way to the academy, Asta immediately opens the light spell book from WJI. He's impressed because WJI made the interpretations so simple. And trust me, you and I know he's about to become a monster with this. But unlike the others, Asta believes WJ's theory actually lines up with Declan's celestial principle. A moment later, they pull up to the academy. Asta just stares out the window at the famous Xenon Academy. And right on cue, Lancency tells them this is as far as the carriage goes. It's a founding rule here, no matter your status, every student walks through the gates on their own 2 feet. Lancency says this is where they part ways, wishing the kids good luck and to have a great time. After stepping out of the carriage, it all starts to sink in. Damon grabs Asta, saying they gotta rush to the ceremony because Lancency warned him they might run out of seats. Asta's just baffled. It's an entrance ceremony, not some village theater where you fight for a spot. Then it hits him. Of course Lancency said that. It was a perfect trick to keep Damon from getting cold feet. Asta just smirks and decides to play along just this once. They finally get to the hall, and Damon is absolutely floored by how many people are there. And even though half the hall is empty, he's still convinced Lancency was right about the seats. Asta can't believe his friend is still falling for it. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed. He pulls out their reservations to find their real spots, but Damon just points randomly, wanting to sit there. It's so weird. Asta's just trying to figure out why Damon is suddenly so excited when he was just trying to escape. Suddenly, Damon slams right into another student, a massive dude named Exter. The guy stares down at Damon like he's something he'd scrape off his shoe. Asta rushes over to help his friend up. Damon insists he's fine, blaming himself for not watching where he was going. But as they're about to walk away, Exter stops them. Turns out Damon got a little bit of drool on his clothes. Asta's trying to process this when Damon tries to wipe the spot clean, somehow adding even more saliva. And now Exter is furious. He hauls off and throws a punch right at Damon's face. But Asta's faster, blocking the hit before it lands. He tells the guy to calm down before he does something stupid. Exter yells, asking who the hell Asta is, and Damon proudly announces, "He's my friend." Asta agrees and Exter finally gets it. But he sneers, telling Asta he's about to regret that decision. Asta can see exactly where this is going, and honestly, he doesn't mind one bit. He can tell Exter wants to settle this with fists, not words, which immediately gets everyone's attention. Turns out this Exter guy is a direct descendant of the powerful DeLumpy family. The other students are already placing bets on the fight, and almost everyone is putting their money on Exter. One student tries to intervene, wanting to stop them before things get out of hand. He argues that they can't have a real fight with the room being so crowded. But another student just grins and instantly whips up a barrier around them so they can go all out. The crowd erupts, cheering for Exter, telling him they've got his back. Meanwhile, some creepy-looking student in the back is just smiling like he knows exactly what's about to unfold. Inside the dome, Exter introduces himself and demands Asta do the same. Asta just shrugs, saying he's not a noble. He tells Exter to just think of him as some random dude passing by, and Exter smugly offers him the first shot. Asta just bursts out laughing right in his face, teasing him. That's all it takes. Exter charges like a raging bull. But Asta reminds him he's about to fight two people. He effortlessly dodges the punch and delivers a brutal counterstrike to Exter's face, sending him flying back. Exter is stunned. The weight behind that punch was insane. He starts to wonder if Asta's even a magician at all. Suddenly he feels a healing spell wash over him. It's coming from Damon. He has no clue why Damon is helping him, but he's about to experience the most brutal fight of his life. Before he can even process it, Asta closes the distance and sinks a fist into his gut. Blow after blow rains down on him, and then he gets it. The horrifying strategy. One of them beats him to a pulp while the other one heals him. He's forced to admit it, he's up against a couple of complete psychopaths. And for the first time, he feels fear. But the crowd outside just cheers louder, telling him not to hold back, calling him the hope of all warriors. With that fire in his belly, Exter finally gets his head in the game. He roars that Asta is just a mere magician swinging wildly. But Asta easily dodges the first attack. Asta gives him props for trying, but Exter just screams back, "Don't underestimate me." This time his right hook connects hard. Asta is sent flying as the students cheer, thinking Exter is finally dominating this fight. But Exter doesn't look too happy. He felt the hit land, but the impact. It felt way too light. In a flash of acrobatic skill, Asta flips his body mid-air and lands perfectly on his feet. Exter is stunned, but he shakes it off and charges again. That's when Asta spots Damien still healing Exter from the sidelines. He realizes this fight could go on forever. He has to end this with one single decisive blow. And to do that, Asta taps into a secret technique he developed with his old comrades. You're gonna want to see this. By clashing magic particles, Asta can draw out pure energy. It uses magic, but it's not magic or martial arts. It's something else entirely, a purely technical use of magical physics. Once Asta has cooked up his move, he lets Exter get right in his face before unleashing it. The resulting shockwave is so massive it nearly blinds the crowd and shatters the barrier. Everyone is just asking, what did we just witness? And then Exter crashes to the ground, completely knocked out. Everyone is just frozen in shock. They can't believe the mighty Exter went down with a single punch. Asta raises his hand like a champion, and the crowd just erupts, wondering if he's even a magician at all. Damien is ecstatic that they won, and Asta gives him a pat on the head. That mysterious dude watching from a distance just smirks, his eyes locked on Asta. Just then, a teacher arrives on the scene to break things up, furious that students are brawling on the very first day. He starts demanding to know who the culprits are. But the students love the show, so nobody's snitching. Asta's already planning their escape, but Damien's about to ruin everything. He yells to get the teacher's attention, proudly announcing that he and Asta caused all the trouble. I know what you're thinking, what an absolute idiot. Asta just closes his eyes, feeling the headache coming on as the teacher walks right toward them. Meanwhile, the giant Exter is still out cold. The two boys get dragged to the teacher's office for a serious scolding. But since Damien confessed so willingly, the teacher actually lets it slide. Plus, after a quick checkup, it turns out Exter wasn't seriously injured. The two head back to the hall, lucky that the ceremony hasn't even started. As they walk, all eyes are on them now. Nobody can believe that a guy as frail-looking as Asta took down a martial arts powerhouse. While Asta tries to keep a low profile, Damien is soaking it all in, waving to the students like a celebrity. Asta can't believe it. He's already drawn a massive target on his back. He just wishes Damien would stop waving his arms like a fool. After a quick search, they finally find their seats. Not long after, the headmaster, a short old man with white hair, takes the stage to address the new students. Minutes tick by and the headmaster is still going strong, which honestly impresses Asta. Damien, on the other hand, is completely passed out and drooling everywhere. Asta has to physically pull him up before he floods the floor. The headmaster is really getting into his speech when someone rushes over to tell him something important has come up. He tries to brush it off at first. But when he hears what it's about, he has no choice but to cut his speech short and hand the podium to someone else. A bright-haired woman steps up to the microphone, and her powerful voice sends a jolt through the entire hall. Even Damien, who was dead asleep, snaps awake from the woman's thunderous voice. She introduces herself as JRO and says she'll be continuing where the headmaster left off. JRO decides to start with the freshman oath, calling up the Magic Division's representative Dahlia Denai. The moment her name is spoken, whispers erupt through the crowd. No one expected someone from the Denai family to take the entrance exam. Some students gossip that her skills must be lacking, while others argue there's no way that's true. Her family never would have allowed it if she wasn't a top-tier talent. But Asta, he already knows exactly who Dahlia is. You see, the Denai family is the second most powerful house right after the Declans. And trust me, that name is going to be important. Meet Dahlia, the future lead mage for Denai, the house that's always stuck in second place. Asta admits she's skilled since he got some help from her, but let's be real, they don't get along. They're what you'd call bad friends. But hearing Dahlia joined his class this year, Asta can't help but crack a smile. After Dahlia hits the stage, the martial arts representative Paul gets called up. No last name is announced. Asta figures the guy's not a noble and probably not from any important family either. Once the two finish their oaths, they start heading back to their seats. JRO then announces it's time to introduce the professors who will be teaching them. One by one they come forward. But as Dahlia walks down, her eyes lock directly on Asta, totally shocking him with the direct eye contact. Then suddenly Dahlia completely misses her step. She tumbles right down the stairs, a moment of pure embarrassment. And right then Professor Perun takes the stage. Asta notices he's different from the others, but decides he'll wait before making any final judgments. After the ceremony, JRO tells all the students to head to their assigned dormitories. Damon finally wakes up, so Asta decides to mess with him, saying he got expelled for sleeping through the event. Hearing this, Damon lets out a scream that could probably shake the entire building. Asta almost regrets the prank. He was not expecting that level of screaming on his way to the dorm. He finally gets to his room, and it's surprisingly nice. There are even living supplies set up in the corner to make things easier. Just as he's organizing his stuff, his new roommate Paul walks in. And guys, this is where it gets interesting. Asta is shocked. Paul looks freezing cold, like he couldn't care less about anything. Then he opens his mouth. He tells Asta it would be best if they just lived quietly, because he has zero interest in making friends. Paul makes it clear he doesn't care what Asta does, as long as it never affects him. In fact, he'd rather they just stop talking after this. But Asta isn't one to get scared off. He just locks eyes with Paul in a silent staring contest. Asta says nothing, which only seems to annoy Paul, who demands to know why he isn't answering. Deep down, Asta is wondering just how good this guy is since he came in as the top student. Time for a little test. Paul immediately reaches for his sword, and Asta sees his stance is actually perfect. Even his sword placement shows he knows exactly what he's doing. Just then, Damon's voice calls out from outside. Asta just flashes a grin like nothing happened and tells Paul he can do whatever he wants. Since they're minding their own business, Asta teases him, saying he might just start singing past midnight. After completely riling Paul up and leaving him stunned, Asta casually steps out of the room. He meets up with Damon, who excitedly asks who his roommate is. Asta just says he doesn't know, leaving Damon confused. Damon drops it and suggests they tour the academy, since there's so much to check out. He's determined to see every single thing on their very first day. Apparently the campus is so huge that students are warned to learn the layout or risk getting lost. It sounds like a pain, but Asta is up for it. He's got his own goal in mind, find out how many troubleshooters are here. With that, the two start exploring. They quickly find a lake, and Damon, as usual, can't believe his eyes. Asta finally understands why Lance was stuck with Damon. The guy acts like a complete baby all the time. Tired of his complaining, Asta tells Damon to just have his family build him a lake, since his estate doesn't have one. He explains that all they need to do is dig a big hole and pour water in it. Damon is totally sold on the idea, and excitedly says he'll tell his family to make one even bigger than this. Thinking about what to name it, he comes up with blood, sweat, and tears. They then find a cool-looking statue, and Asta tells Damon to have his family make one for him too. Asta keeps feeding him ideas, even suggesting a dragon design because the scales would be gorgeous. Meanwhile, back at home, Lance gets a sudden strange feeling, wondering what could possibly be wrong. After walking for a while, Asta suggests they head back, and Damon agrees. During their tour, Asta counted 7 troubleshooters. He figures he should account for any he missed, bringing the total to 10. And trust me, that number is about to change everything. He crunches the numbers and pinpoints Perun's lab to the second magic hall. And just like that, you and I can see him connect the dots. The troubleshooters are gunning for Perun. Since Declan knows Wee has backup, Perun was the obvious next suspect in the area. Asta wondered why they hadn't moved on him yet, but then he realized they timed their strike perfectly. He decides to get closer to figure out exactly what the troubleshooters know, and finds the perfect spot to eavesdrop. One agent tells the other that HQ has sent an emergency directive they're all to meet at the target's location. The second guy asks if they're going for the main target or the sub, and gets his answer, it's the sub. Their mission is to deliver the objective to the sub-target before midnight. So if WJI made his move, it's gotta be Perun. That's their target. But he's worried about the school professors saying they're no match. The other agent explains that Declan himself isn't coming. Now pay attention, because the name he drops next is a total game changer. The fire demon Callahan is joining them. This is a huge shock. Callahan is the vice leader of Declan's elite mage corps, the Red Jewel. This means their operation has official cover, and Declan is willing to do anything to get this done. It also means the troubleshooters are totally expendable pawns to guarantee the mission's success. They're worried, sure, but they have no choice. It's the job. The two agents move out to rejoin their team, needing all the manpower they can get, but they have no idea. Asta heard every single word, and he's floored that Callahan of all people is coming on this mission. He knows Callahan is no joke. Back when Asta was a troubleshooter, the guy was already a legend in his prime. After the Declan family gambled everything in a war, Callahan stayed loyal to the bitter end, even as the house was crumbling. That's some serious devotion. But while he's dangerous now, he truly became a monster after the war with the Blander family. He literally burned his name into the history books as a war mage with unstoppable fire magic. If Callahan is coming, Asta knows he has to capture him, remembering his magic is one of Declan's flame arts. Yeah, the risks are sky high, but Asta believes the potential reward is totally worth it. He can't help but smile at how everything is falling into place for him. But one major piece doesn't fit the thesis they're all hunting for, is with him not Perun. So if they're still targeting Perun, does that mean his thesis is a fake? Which means the one being delivered today is also a decoy. Okay, I know what you're thinking, but here's the twist you didn't see coming. Back in the dorm, Paul gets dressed. He's a troubleshooter. He thinks Asta is fast asleep, but he's actually looking at a decoy dummy. Meanwhile, Perun is in his study when he feels their presence. They've just stepped onto his turf. He's wondering why they'd be so bold as to invade the academy when it hits him the one approaching is a mercenary. And to his surprise, it's Paul. He instantly recognizes the kid's aura. He even gives him a little tip work on refining your ether's signature next time. That is if he even gets a next time. Paul hands him an envelope and Perun realizes it's from Wee. He's trying to figure out what kind of new game, what kind of trick Wee is playing now. Suddenly the door explodes. Callahan strolls in. Paul's face is pure terror, but Perun doesn't even flinch. Callahan can see Paul is absolutely terrified, which means the kid knows exactly who he is. He then turns to Perun asking if he's heard of the great Callahan too. Perun just coldly says no, gets up and tells him to get to the point. This ticks Callahan off, but he admits no one's ever disrespected him like that before. So Callahan lays out his terms. First up, Paul dies. Then he looks at Perun saying he'll be leaving with just one arm and one eye. And trust me, you and I are about to see all hell break loose. Callahan launches a fireball, but Perun counters with ice, rocking the entire building. Perun then turns to Paul. He tells him his life is his own problem. Now he's a mercenary, not a student. Paul accepts this, drawing his sword to fight. Perun realizes the troubleshooters must have cast a blackout spell. No alarms, no help. He's trapped in here with them. Okay, stick with me here. Callahan has his eyes locked on one thing. He wants the envelope sent to Perun by the Trash Blander family, and he's not being subtle about it. But since Perun won't hand it over, Callahan decides to skip the pleasantries. He erupts in a massive flame spell that makes the ground tremble, but Perun stays cool, activating his ice powers to counter. And right then, more troubleshooters start moving in, and Pun unleashes a strike, so devastating it practically shatters the entire building. Meanwhile, Asta is watching from a safe distance, realizing things are getting way out of hand. Itching for some real action, Asta puts on his mask. He's not Asta anymore, he is Troubleshooter 1. He clenches his fist, sending a quick prayer to the moon for the strength to be a good troubleshooter today. Even though he knows he hasn't been the most righteous, with his prayer done he rockets toward the collapsing building. Callahan, on the other hand, is having an absolute blast inside. He's honestly surprised Paul is still alive after everything, and even gives him a little credit for it. But deep down, Paul knows he would have been vaporized if not for the protective talisman WJI gave him. He didn't even know that's what it was. Talk about getting lucky. Perun's voice cuts in colder than his magic, telling Paul to get clear as he fires a massive ice blast at Callahan. Then Perun pats Paul's shoulder, telling him he's done well so far, a clear sign he's finally earned his trust. Now this is the part you gotta see. Perun infuses Paul's sword with ether, leaving Paul completely shocked. He asks if Paul can keep blocking attacks, and Paul just says yes for as long as he's needed. Paul realizes there's no retreat now. If he can't hold on, he is absolutely dead. Callahan just grins, loving this new Mage Guard combo. He unleashes another roaring fireball, and this time, Paul's sword fails him. He's smashed into the wall, and with his shield gone, Perun has to get deadly serious. Here's the thing. When two powerful mages fight where mana is scarce, it becomes a brutal tug of war for control over nature itself. Perun wants to test just how much pain Callahan can take. A duel, Callahan is more than happy to oblige. They both unleash everything they've got, and the building finally gives way under the strain. It crumbles, and Paul loses his footing, plummeting down while watching two monsters clash with everything they have. Paul hits the ground hard. He's left wondering why he ever joined a fight so far above his power level. From afar, the other troubleshooters are just blown away by the sheer destruction these two are causing. Without a second thought, they know interfering would be instant death. But then Asta appears from behind, taking them out and causing pure panic. After clearing out the small fry, Asta makes a beeline for the real fight. His arrival stops both fighters cold. And I know what you're thinking, whose side is this guy even on? With unbelievable speed, Asta closes the distance and grabs Callahan by the throat, telling him he's reached his final destination. Terrified, Callahan frantically shoots a fire blast, which only causes a massive mana backlash on himself. He coughs up, blood stunned that Asta is completely unhurt and already dashing toward him again. At the same time, more troubleshooters are moving in. Callahan knows he has to stop the backlash or he's done. He slams a potion, wondering where in the world this monster Asta came from. The troubleshooters try to take Asta down, but he blocks their attack effortlessly before sending them flying with a counter. Callahan is floored. He's so stunned he almost forgets to be scared. Asta moves with a deadly precision that's almost beautiful. But even so, Callahan is pissed. He declares right then and there that he is going to kill Asta. He furiously summons dozens of magic circles, preparing to unleash an even more powerful flame attack. The firepower is so overwhelming it incinerates his own allies. Asta can only stare in disbelief. As the smoke clears, Callahan wonders if he hit Asta. He knows some of his own guys got caught in it, but he couldn't care less. He's focused only on the mission. And that's the kind of guy we're dealing with. Whoever dies on the way is just collateral. After a few tense seconds with no sign of movement, he assumes Asta is toast. A smirk spreads across his face, thinking he overdid it. You and I both know he's celebrating way too early, already plotting his next move. But then, ice floods his veins as he hears Asta's voice from afar, asking if that was really the best he could do. Asta taunts him, saying he knows exactly what kind of scumbag Callahan is willing to sacrifice his own men for a shot at taking him out. Looking down from above, Asta aims a magic circle at him, declaring his actions have earned him a death sentence. Asta unleashes his Mona bullet. With zero time to dodge, Callahan can only watch the attack rocket straight towards him. The Mona bullet slams right into Callahan's head, punching through it like a high-caliber round. With Callahan dealt with, Asta admits the guy was impressive. Any other mage would have been vaporized by that first sneak attack. He even admits Callahan's attacks were deadly, but that final all-out blast actually played right into his hands. Asta knew that if Callahan had teamed up with the troubleshooters, he would have been overwhelmed in a drawn-out fight. Because even though his power is growing, Asta's mana reserve is still dangerously low, which is to say the least, not ideal. Asta then walks over to Callahan's body to see what he can find. He hits the jackpot and finds the grimoire he was looking for. Apparently most battle mages are paranoid and carry their grimoires on them. Even though the spatial pouch has a built-in owner recognition spell, Asta isn't worried. He can figure out how to break the spell later. Just then, Perun shows up and Asta tells him he's late. Pun reveals he was just taking care of the last of the small fry. He asks if Asta is another enemy. Asta just tells him to use his brain. He just smoked Declan's guy. What does he think? Upon hearing this, Perun realizes WJ was the one who sent Asta, and he finally lets his guard down. But he's still confused why Paul approached him. He wonders if WJ is splitting the research into two papers, which would explain needing two different couriers. Asta says the one with Paul was probably a fake. He figures WJI used it as bait to lure Declan's men right into a trap. Asta guesses WJI is trying to tighten security in the region while completely wrecking Declan's influence at the same time. But deep down, Asta feels like something's off. Now pay attention because this is a huge realization. The fight was insane. The Imperial Knights should have been here by now. This can only mean one thing: the Knights have been bribed by Declan too. Perun then asks Asta if he's the courier, and Asta answers by just pulling out the thesis and handing it over. After taking it, Perun asks if Asta knows what's inside. Asta just replies that he's not a fool. So yeah, he knows. Perun remains cautious, but Asta assures him he doesn't mind throwing down right here and now. But he warns him to think very carefully, because his decision will determine if he lives or dies. Perun agrees. Asta makes a good point, then asks what he wants in return. Asta is confused, so Perun explains that we only trust people like himself. And to earn his trust, he needs to give Asta a reward. Asta thinks for a minute. And trust me, what he asks for isn't what you'd expect. He says he wants a book. Perun is understandably confused, so Asta explains his grand plan to build a huge tower. He says he's going to fill that tower with books that absolutely anyone can come inside and read. He asks Perun for a book on arcane science written from his perspective. Perun is stunned but promises he'll get on it. With their business concluded, Asta says it's time for him to leave. But Perun asks how they're supposed to stay in contact. Asta then pulls out a communication crystal and hands it to him. He explains the two halves are linked. So if one breaks, the other one shatters too. He tells Perun to break a single shard to call him, and to break more than one if he's in deep trouble. After explaining the crystal, he vanishes into thin air. Not long after, the Imperial Knights finally show up to secure the scene. They also evacuate the students from the academy in case of a follow-up attack. In the confusion, Asta blends right in with the students. He meets up with Damon, who asks where he was. Asta just says he was handling something. Meanwhile, Asta is pretty sure that after this incident, the Declan family is going to have to pull back for a bit. While Damon pesters him, Asta is just wondering why his sigil reacted. You and I know that's the real mystery brewing here. Blocking Callahan's attack, he felt power humming through the barrier, a sigil that's usually just dead weight. Asta's just thankful it woke up when it did, saving him from that nasty counterattack. He racks his brain, and then it hits him. It was the rejection phenomenon. Stick with me because this concept changes everything. It's a defense mechanism mages use so their own magic doesn't blow up in their face. Asta is so deep in thought, he starts muttering out loud, which immediately gets Damon's attention. He demands to know what's going on. Damien gets right in his face, wanting to know what secret Asta is hiding. But Asta just tunes him out, completely obsessed with why the sigil activated right then. What was the trigger? He realizes he needs answers and fast. The Academy library is his best bet to find some clues. He's just trying to get on with his day when a student calls out his name from behind. The kid introduces himself as Chenbi. Asta's ready to brush him off until he calls him a pretty good fighter. Okay, now pay attention. Asta's mind races. Does this guy know his secret? Should he just take him out right now? But before Asta can make a move, Chenbi says the one thing that saves his own life. He says that Asta's fight during the entrance ceremony was seriously impressive. And just like that, Asta gets it. He didn't make enemies, he earned respect. A totally new feeling for him. Asta tries to play it cool, saying the guy he fought was just low on ether, and a rematch would be different. Chenbi just nervously scratches his head and keeps following them, saying he wants to hang out with Asta. Turns out, Chenbi hasn't made any friends yet, and feels awkward trying to join other groups. Asta isn't totally sold on this, but tells the kid to do whatever he wants. Chenbi is just happy he didn't get shoved away. And Chenbi doesn't waste a second, immediately striking up a conversation with Asta. Honestly, it's a breath of fresh air. Asta's been dealing with nothing but lunatics since he came back in time. He'd forgotten what normal even feels like. To get that back, he knows he has to settle in at the academy. First day of lectures, and of course Damon is already complaining about being tired. A moment later, Chenbi shows up too, complaining that they have to attend class after the chaos from yesterday. And Asta can't help but agree. Yeah, it's pretty harsh. From what Asta can tell, Chenbi isn't rich, but he's not shy either. Actually, he's got a pretty cheerful vibe. That's when Chenbi drops a name. Their homeroom teacher is Professor JRO. I know what you're thinking, just another teacher, think again. Asta has never heard the name, so Chenbi explains that JRO is an absolute big shot. The rumor is, she once wiped out an entire horde of trolls all by herself. And right on cue, she walks in. It's the woman from the entrance ceremony. JRO stands before the class and properly introduces herself. She tells them yesterday's chaos is in the past. It has nothing to do with them and their job is to learn. But before they start, JRO announces their first test, a mana assessment. This will evaluate both the quantity and quality of their mana. Then she asks them which one they think is more important. A student named Argan raises her hand ready with an answer. She says there's no right answer, but once you have enough mana, she believes quality matters more. Draw presses her, demanding to know the reason behind her answer. Argan explains that if two mages of equal power fight, the one with better mana quality will always have the edge. Asta hears this and immediately recognizes it for what it is, a perfect textbook answer. But with his experience, Asta knows mana quality affects a spell's accuracy, stability, and raw power. Bottom line, having a massive mana pool is useless if you can't even hit your target. JRO looks completely unimpressed. She then asks Argan what family she's from. She replies she's from the Baron Pelham household. JRO looks disgusted. I thought so, she says, her voice dripping with contempt. Argan is completely crushed, tears welling up in her eyes. JRO throws the question to the class again, but now nobody wants to be the next victim. Suddenly she points right at a student named Ippel, startling him. He nervously gets to his feet and with no clue what to say, he just blurts out that mana quantity is more important. Ippel stammers that in huge battles, total mana might be the deciding factor. And you and I both know he's not entirely wrong. Alright, let's jump into a classroom where the first lesson is a complete mind game. Just like Argan, Draw isn't impressed with the next answer and gives Epipole the exact same cold shoulder. But Draw doesn't back down. She keeps calling on students one after another, searching for something more. The class is already whispering, annoyed that she's putting them on blast on the very first day. Asta, meanwhile, is trying to figure out what kind of answer would actually satisfy her. And just then, Draw stops them all, saying she's heard enough. She admits they were all close to the answer. But here's the twist, there was never a right answer to begin with. That wasn't her goal. She asks them a simple question. Were their answers from the heart or just what they thought she wanted to hear? Draw lays it out plain and simple. A mage must never lose their conviction no matter the situation. They can't be swayed by temptations. They need the mental strength to follow their own path to the end. She challenges them again, asking if the answers they gave truly reflect the mindset of a real mage. She tells them their ultimate goal isn't just power, but to become a true mage in spirit. With that lesson delivered, she tells them to remember her words. Asta just smirks, realizing her teaching method is just really weird. Now it's time for the mana measurement test, and the first person she calls up is Argan. Then Draw drops a bombshell announcing Argan is now the class representative. Total shock. Draw says her answer earlier was impressive, and as the rep, she'll be recording everyone's scores. Asta sees this and it clicks. He's starting to understand how this teacher operates. He's impressed. And pay attention here because the students are stunned to see the testing equipment. This stuff is seriously rare. Draw knows most of them are rookies. With a wicked smile, she says it's time to measure their true mana levels. The real point of this test, to see if there's a hidden monster hiding among the freshmen. To show them how it's done, she has Argan place her hand on the crystal orb and pour her mana into it. Argan steps up, follows the instructions, and the entire device lights up with a brilliant flash. The result blows her away. Draw points to the most important dial on the whole machine. She explains mana quality is ranked 1 to 10. Argan hits a level 4, which is insane for a freshman. Argan turns bright red at the praise, thanking her teacher for the unexpected compliment. Next up is the mana quantity measurement. All Argan has to do is pour in as much as she can. Her mana quantity hits 17. Again, Draw confirms this is a huge score, beating last year's average. Draw praises her for being a hard worker, and you can tell from the insane numbers she's putting up. And just like that, the bar is set. The other students are practically praying for a decent score. Asta, on the other hand, watches calmly, seeing the potential for Argan to become a great mage. Draw then has to leave for a meeting, but she leaves her assistant professor in charge of the test. One by one, the students step forward to see where they stand to test their own potential. After seeing their results, they know their strengths and weaknesses. Then Chenbi pokes Asta, telling him it's their turn. Asta is down for it, but Damien, he's completely passed out, sleeping like a log again. Suddenly, another student named Furion steps up, and her results leave the entire class speechless. Furion hits a quality level of 6, and her quantity shoots all the way up to 20, a new record. Asta is surprised. Furion is from the same house as Dahlia, but her hair color means she's from a branch family. The assistant isn't surprised, knowing she comes from a well-known family, but tells her she can still improve. A moment later, Damien finally wakes up from his nap, looking around, totally lost and confused. At first, Asta jokes for him to go back to sleep, but then tells him they're doing mana measurements. Damien seems completely bored by the idea, asking why they're even bothering with the test. Asta admits he doesn't know, but hey, it's a free test, so they might as well find out. Realizing it's a class activity, Damien's mood flips, and he yells that he'll try it too. Asta can't believe he's so eager all of a sudden as the crowd murmurs about how young Damien looks. And with that, you and I know the real show is about to start. Chenbi is the only unknown left in the group. Asta is not happy being called a student beater, especially since Damon was the one hyped for the fight. Damon hits the stage and the teacher tells him to go ahead and give the device a try. He confirms what to do, touches the crystal ball, and the second it reads his power, the whole class just freezes. No one can believe what they're seeing. Furion looks like she's about to snap her own neck, staring at the board. Now watch this. Damien is officially in the monster category with a mana quality of level 9 and a quantity of 67. And in the entire room there's only one person who isn't shocked in the slightest, our boy Asta. Asta gets it. Greatness makes people freeze up. He knew Damon was a genius, but he never thought he'd obliterate the high scores like this. Damien, as always, has zero clue about the bombshell he just dropped, asking if his score is any good. Asta finally understands how he became such a beast. But he's certain that if Damien had chosen the right path, he could have been a hero who changed the world. This time, though, Asta is here to make sure he guides him down that righteous path. That's because the Blander family is the only power that can actually challenge Declan. Asta's goal is to push Damien beyond any limit imaginable. The teacher warns Damon not to let the score go to his head, telling him he still has to work hard. Damien just assures the guy that he already knows. He then sprints over to Asta asking if he's measured his power yet. Asta knows everyone's just waiting to compare him to Damien's monster score. So what does he do? Let's watch. As our main character decides to pull off some next-level deception, Asta touches the ball, carefully adjusting his mana output just how he wants it. But he quickly realizes the device is set way too low, meaning even his tiny bit of mana did something huge. The system flashes the number 10 before the machine completely shorts out, displaying an error message. He crossed the threshold. Damien starts celebrating like crazy, but Asta quickly tells the teacher the machine must have malfunctioned and they should rerun the test. Only Damon knows that Asta is just trying to lay low. The teacher resets the machine, and this time Asta dials his mana so far down it only reads 3 for quality and 15 for quantity. Just as Asta planned, all the other students immediately believe the low score. Asta is glad he pulled it off, but Damon is not pleased at all, even muttering a curse under his breath. Over at the First Department of Magic, Dra watches the reconstruction of the second mage hall from her office. A moment later, her assistant Yurvi arrives with the mana measurement records for the new students. Dra scans the list, noting the high scores, and mentions that Damon is definitely going to need special guidance. Suddenly, her eyes land on Asta's score. She sees the error message and the retest. In that instant, she knows Asta is no ordinary kid, and she needs to keep a very close eye on him. A little later, we see the trio just having fun, creating toys with their magic. Chenbi is completely blown away by how effortlessly Damien can pour out his mana. Seeing this, Chenbi starts to feel like he's just a nobody compared to his powerful friends. Asta notices Chenbi's reaction, wishing his friend could just accept reality and focus on his own growth. After they finish, Damon admits he had a lot of fun and is glad he came to the academy. Asta hears this and feels a wave of relief. He's thankful that Damon is finally adjusting to his new life. Some time passes and Asta finally gains access to his spatial pocket. It took him a whole month because of his weak magical sense. During that time, he also fully absorbed the elixir he received from Blandor. On top of that, he's learned a massive amount of information at the academy. Now that the spatial pocket is open, he dives right in, and the first thing he spots is a potion. After that, he pulls out a cloak he deems pretty useless, followed by a defensive artifact, which he thinks is a solid find. And then he pulls out the grand prize, one of Declan's secret grimoires, the Red Flame. This spell is a lesser version of the blue flame used by Farron, but it's still powerful enough to burn through entire armies. He knows he can't learn it instantly. Mastering this is going to take a while. Later, the students all gather for their midterm performance evaluation. Asta is shocked by how many people are there, but Chenbi points out that it's all of the first-year students. Chenbi then leans in and tells Asta the big rumor their test is going to be the Canyon Breakthrough. One of the staff members let it slip. Alright, let's dive into the midterm from hell. It's got 3 parts, a sewer maze where you just have to reach the end. The second part is a canyon race, a straight dash to the finish line. And third, a simulator duel against either a person or a monster. Asta knows all this, like the back of his hand, so he's not sweating it. He just needs to pass. But he is worried about Chenbi, who isn't a powerhouse like him or Damien. Suddenly, a booming voice cuts through the chatter, telling everyone to shut it. It's their instructor, Perun, and he announces he's the one overseeing this whole evaluation. Wasting no time, Perun drops the bomb. Their test is the trial corridor maze. Chenbi just about has a heart attack, his genius plan already up in smoke. Perun then orders everyone to line up while he explains the rules. He tells them the trial corridor is just a big sewer maze, and their only job is to get through to the final gate. He adds that pretty much all the paths lead to the same exit, no matter which route they pick. Chenbi's face lights up hearing this, thinking this is going to be a total cakewalk. But just then, Perun smirks. Did they really think it would be that simple? And here's where things get crazy. Perun unleashes his little secret, a whole squad of golems. Chenbi absolutely loses it. Golems in a performance test, are they serious right now? Perun admits the golems are slow and kinda dumb, but for their current level they're still incredibly tough. However, he's given them a fighting chance. The golem cores are exposed, and their defenses have been lowered. Still, Perun warns them that in a tight space, those golems will catch them easily. He scans the students' faces and looks totally disappointed. But he's holding out hope that there are a few hidden gems in the crowd. After a quick look, he assesses them, completely dismissing Damien as a non-threat just because he looks bored. Perun keeps explaining, saying the golems are basically just armored gatekeepers. So it's up to the students to either beat them or just sneak right past them. Each of them gets a test bracelet with a personal force field. He makes it clear the second that force field shatters, they are out. Disqualified. The golems will just ignore them after that. After he's finished explaining all the rules, Perun can see they're still not hyped, so he decides to throw in a little motivation. Okay, you and I both know this is the real test. He tells them to impress him, and the winner gets a personal reward they'll absolutely love. The second Asta hears that he's all in. Game on. He wants whatever Perun is offering. Turns out, Rapida is the biggest library on the whole eastern continent, and it's divided into 3 separate tiers. There's the upper, middle, and lower sections. Because of Asta's status, he can only get into the lower tier. He already went there looking for clues, but found absolutely nothing useful in that bottom section. Asta realizes that if he's ever going to find what he's looking for, he needs access to the middle or upper tiers. Problem is, those 2 levels are restricted. Only royalty arch-nobles and the super elite get in. But there's a loophole: get a recommendation from 3 or more professors and you're in. And with that, Asta knows exactly what he has to do. He has to blow Perun away. With the rules set, Perun gives them a short prep time to grab any supplies from the professors that might help. Immediately, the students mob the assistants trying to get their hands on high-level gear for the test. But yeah, no. Most of their requests get shot down. They can't bring anything that gives them a huge advantage. While everyone else is losing their minds, Damien calmly walks up and just requests 20 vine seeds. The assistant professor is shocked. Vine seeds, that's not even his primary element. But Damien just replies that he doesn't have a primary element, which means plant magic is fair game. Asta is stunned. He can't believe the chill and unbothered Damien is actually taking this seriously. At the same time, Asta wonders if this is the moment Chenbi will finally step up. Once prep time is over, Perun announces he's assigning everyone starting locations. They need to check the board for their names. Asta finds his name and sees he's been assigned to starting point 3. He glances around and sees his 2 buddies were assigned to totally different starting points. Alright, let me show you how our boy Asta flips the script on some arrogant nobles he's stuck with. Sure enough, some arrogant rich kid and his 2 goons immediately swagger up to him. He introduces himself as Debay, offering a deal to buy the bracelets of any students who get eliminated. The price he offers is a measly 30 gold coins for each one. He says that Asta himself and his 2 friends are safe, which means he's ready to pay 90 gold. When Asta hears this, his eyes widen. 30 gold is a peasant family's entire monthly income. Debay thinks Asta will jump at the offer, seeing he comes from a poor background. It's just a way to protect himself. And Asta gets it. This isn't cowardice, it's just the art of using what you have to your advantage. Since they're rich, why not throw money at their problems? But then Asta asks why he only calculated 90 gold. Debay just assumes Asta's being greedy, so he bumps the offer up to 105 gold coins. Asta just shakes his head. The math is still all wrong. He points out there are 3 other guys on the team, making it 6 people. Then he drops the killer question: why'd you remove the price of your own life from the math? According to Asta's calculations, the right amount should be 210 gold. The trio's jaws just hit the floor. Debay is fuming at the sheer confidence rolling off Asta. Fine. He decides to raise the price again, this time to 40 gold coins for each bracelet. But Asta just uses it against him, saying the new total is now 240 gold. Debay reacts angrily, not believing Asta is really trying to profit from a deal that could cost him his life. He realizes there's no way he can win this negotiation with Asta. And here's where it gets absolutely savage. Debay says the negotiations are off and turns to leave, but Asta calls him back. Asta lets him know that he already owes him money, and that just completely triggers Debay. He demands to know what Asta means. So Asta uses a simple analogy about a carriage with 3 people and 3 packs. Even if the packs of luggage are removed from the carriage, Asta tells him he's still supposed to pay for the people inside. With a wicked grin, he demands 120 gold. Debay's goons immediately jump in to defend their master, telling Asta he's nothing special. One of them gets way too excited and steps right up to Asta, threatening to beat him down. But he quickly realizes it's the wrong move when he sees the cold shift in Asta's stance. Trying to avoid any real trouble, Debay finally decides to pay up the 120 gold. But just as he's about to pay, Asta raises the price to 160, calling it the noble tax. Debay has no choice but to pay up, but he promises Asta will suffer for it. Then it's time for the test to begin. Okay, let's get the rules straight because you and I both know they're about to be broken. The instructor adds that a barrier activates against any spells that directly strike the body. If that barrier is destroyed, the bracelet stays put, but the wearer is forcibly teleported out of the arena. With this in place, Perun assures them they have nothing to worry about when it comes to injuries. Once all the instructions are laid out, Perun tells his assistants to begin the test. In an instant, the students are all warped into the testing grounds and the broadcast begins. While checking the starting points, Perun realizes that Damien and Dahlia share the exact same one. Suddenly, something goes horribly wrong as the broadcast feed from starting point 3 completely freezes. Panic erupts among the assistants, but Perun quickly urges them to calm down. He tells them he personally checked everything himself. They have no idea a battle has already broken out. Just moments earlier, Debay and his goons wasted no time attacking Asta the second they arrived. Since getting hit by magic means you are instantly disqualified, Asta makes a mad dash for it, dodging their opening attacks. He's so fast, they're left stunned as he closes in. Before they can even react, Asta is already hitting them not to kill, but just enough to get them out of the game. He moves like the Flash, dealing devastating blows to their bodies to knock them all down. After putting them in their place, Asta makes Debay pay. The new price for his arrogance, 320 gold. And that's how you turn a threat into a payday. And to add insult to injury, Asta tells him he'll get paid 1 silver coin per hit. By the end, Dubet is a swollen mess, and Asta gets his whole crew disqualified, easily snatching their bracelets. Now that he has Perun's recommendation, Asta calculates he just needs 2 more bracelets for the reward. But he still needs another professor to sign off on him. For a second, he considers a crazy idea, destroying the 4 pillars holding up the trial corridor. But he quickly dismisses it. Making an enemy of the entire eastern continent, yeah, that's just a fancy way to die. In the end, he figures he'll just have to keep pushing forward and find another way. Meanwhile, Damien has officially lost his mind. He's using vine seeds to hijack golems, controlling them, and making life a living hell for everyone nearby. Chaos erupts. How is Damien controlling golems with simple vine seeds? They try fighting back, but their spells are useless against the vine-wrapped golems. Watching the chaos unfold, Chenbi decides this isn't his problem. His goal is just to pass. He bolts, looking for a safe place to hide. But suddenly his bracelet sparks and he assumes he got hit by a stray spell. Thinking it's all over, he just slumps to the ground, defeated. He waits to get teleported out, convinced he's already been disqualified from the test. But minutes tick by, and nothing happens. Now he's just completely confused. And right here is where a simple exam turns into a full-blown survival game. A voice echoes across the grounds. It tells the students they have no demands, only a mission to deliver consequences for angering a great being. Damien is about to smash a student, but pauses, listening to the mysterious voice. The voice then reveals its true plan to kill every single student. That's when Perun and the staff realize they're in deep trouble. Everything has gone dark. The entire system is hijacked and they have zero control. Perun sees his assistants panicking and snaps at them to get a grip and find the professors immediately. He tells them their top priority is to find a professor named JRO. Wasting no time, the assistants sprint off to find help. Meanwhile, Perun is livid that someone dared to hijack their midterm evaluation as all the golems fall under the enemy's command. Now, in the wrong hands, the golems start moving with deadly speed and precision. Even Asta is surprised by how accurately the golems are able to track him down. He quickly figures out the control system has been tampered with, and that every golem in storage has been unleashed. But Asta, being the battle maniac that he is, decides he might as well have some fun with the golems while he hunts down the mastermind. Chenbi is moping when he hears someone running his way. He turns and a figure emerges from the darkness. It's Asta, but just as he's about to rush over, he sees it. And yeah, you and I both know this can't be good. Asta's being chased by a horde of golems. Asta easily catches up and yells at Chenbi to start running for his life. But after a few seconds, Asta can tell Chenbi doesn't have the stamina. He's going to get caught. So Asta switches to plan B and tells Chenbi to hand over his bracelet. Chenbi is confused, so Asta explains the golems are tracking the bracelets because they're linked to the hacked control system. Understanding now, Chenbi hands over his bracelet without hesitation. But he asks Asta what he plans to do. Asta says he'll be a decoy, buying time for Chenbi to find Damien. Asta reminds him that he has a family to go home to, so he has to be the one to survive this. The words hit Chenbi hard, and he remembers his father and his whole family encouraging him his entire life. Chenbi finally finds the courage to leave Asta behind, pleading with him to make it out alive. As he runs, he tells himself he has to survive. His family sacrificed too much for him to fail now. And then suddenly, A memory of his father calling him his proud son hits him like a ton of bricks. Let that sink in. Is he acting like someone to be proud of? He realizes he's been nothing but timid and indecisive his whole life. He's been nothing special at all. The shame of abandoning his friend is the exact reality check he desperately needed. He's decided he's not adding any more regret to his life. Chenbi turns pure determination in his eyes, refusing to give up. It's time to pull out the single best spell he knows. A final gift left to him by his teacher. As he weaves the magic, he just prays it works. The spell is called the Spear of Earth, and yeah, it's as epic as it sounds. Think of a cavalry lance made of pure magic designed to pierce absolutely anything. Asta is still busy with the golems when he suddenly hears Chenbi scream his name. He whips around to see Chenbi nosebleeding, channeling an insane amount of power. Thanks to that last-second warning, Asta barely dodges the attack as it rips through everything in its path. When the smoke clears, a massive crater is all that's left. But that much power took its toll, and Chenbi starts coughing up blood. He collapses, but Asta catches him just in time. Barely conscious, Chenbi rambles on about how his master named the spell. He calls the spell magnificent, but Asta just shakes his head. Asta tells him it's the caster who makes the spell powerful. The way you use it changes everything. Just then, Chenbi starts his whole deathbed routine, so Asta just shoves a potion down his throat. He tells him to quit being dramatic, he'll be fine. A second later, Chenbi's strength is back, leaving him completely stunned. Meanwhile, Asta's wondering what to do with this guy. He can't exactly drag him into the heart of the danger. Asta closes his eyes, sensing the flow of mana around them. He maps out a safe route and tells Chenbi how to get back to the other students. Chenbi asks him what he's going to do now. Asta's reply: he's got some business to take care of. And yeah, that business is in the control room, right where all that corrupt mana is coming from. He can't wait to check it out. As Asta races towards his target, a familiar feeling washes over him. He's felt this energy before. Now pay attention here because this is a huge reveal. It's not Declan. After a moment, it clicks. He's up against the demonic realm itself. The memories come rushing back, that unmistakable sinister energy flooding out from the demon world. Asta's whole expression shifts into that psycho mode we know and love. He remembers the one person behind it all, Friesen. Meanwhile, back in the control room, Friesen is practically giddy. His little experiment is a massive success. Demonic beasts have manifested and everything is going according to plan. This was all made possible by the ancient artifact glowing on his hands. Thanks to its reality-warping spatial severing function, Friesen opened a gate to the demon realm with 0 casualties and seized complete control of the facility. But as he's celebrating, a voice from the shadows questions him, asking if he really went forward with such an uncertain plan. Friesen just smirks, telling the figure that by creating this demonic energy, their contract is officially fulfilled. A man finally steps out of the darkness, a mask covering the lower half of his face. He tells Friesen he can do whatever he wants as long as it gets results. Okay, so all this chaos is just to ruin a certain professor's reputation. Friesen bows, respectfully addressing the man as the Great Hound of House Vimar. The Hound snaps back, telling Friesen not to speak his family's name with his filthy mouth. Deep down, Friesen is boiling with rage, having to bow to this guy whose family is just a lesser house under Declan. But he's doing all of this so Vimar will give him a place for his twisted experiments. So for now, he'll swallow any insult the Hound throws at him. Besides, his group has finally formed a forbidden magic sect. They call themselves Salvation. The Hound then asks Friesen how long until he has total control of the core, because a student is getting close. But instead of being worried, Friesen looks thrilled. His very first test subject has arrived. He's dying to see what happens when a human is hit with a high dose of demonic energy. Common sense says they should just die on the spot, but Friesen claims ancient texts say otherwise. For magic users, it creates something else, entirely, a human beast. Back with Asta, he's caught in a trap. Golems behind him, demonic beasts in front of him. He's stuck between a rock and a hard place, so Asta does the only thing he can. He pushes forward. Friesen is still smiling until he sees Asta's face on the monitor. Asta just smirks back as if telling him, "I'm coming for you." And that's the moment the villain realizes he messed with the wrong guy. The Hound looks over and asks him if he knows who that is. Friesen has no idea who this guy is, but he's already shaking. How does this stranger know his name? Then Asta pulls out a handful of bracelets. In a flash, he zips toward the demonic beasts, slapping the trackers onto their bodies. And just like that, he pits the demonic beasts against the golems. Now they'll just destroy each other while Asta kicks back and watches. Friesen screams, watching his own creations tear themselves apart. But then, Friesen realizes he has a much bigger problem. Asta just blasted through the barrier and is coming straight for the control room. Before the Hound can even react, Asta is inside, telling Friesen he's been waiting for this moment for a long, long time. Meanwhile, Chenbi finally meets up with Damien and almost has a heart attack seeing the mountain of golem parts Damien has created. Other students are with them, and Dahlia asks Chenbi how he managed to get through the chaos. That's when it clicks for Chenbi. The bracelets. The golems are using them as tracking devices. Chenbi warns everyone, but they refuse to believe him, thinking he's just trying to steal their bracelets. He's in shock. He tells them with everything going down, nobody gives a damn about some stupid bracelets. Chenbi explains the bracelets are linked to the control room, acting like a giant dinner bell for the golems. One of the students asks if he figured that out on his own, but Chenbi tells them it was Asta's discovery. The moment she hears that name, she starts mocking him, saying some trash like Asta tricked him into failing. Another guy chimes in, thinking Chenbi is just scared of failing alone and wants to drag them all down with him. The trash talk keeps coming, but Chenbi isn't having it. He knows exactly what Asta is capable of. Before Chenbi can set them straight, Damien's voice cuts in. He talks about the very first time he met Asta. He says that single moment defined their whole relationship, and it's why he trusts him completely. Now pay attention to this next part. With that, Damien rips his own bracelet off and tosses it on the ground. He tells the others to take it if they want. Then he tells Chenbi it's time to go. Chenbi is completely stunned, realizing he might not know Damien at all. Back in the control room, Asta tells Frizen just how much he's wanted to kill him. But Frizen is still confused, acting like he has no idea who Asta is. He turns to the Hound, telling him to do his job and protect him. The Hound asks Frizen, "Are you absolutely sure you don't know who this kid is?" Frizen swears he has no connection to Asta, so the Hound finally steps in. A contract is a contract after all. He whips out his insane weapon, a chain sword, and promises to make Asta disappear without a trace. But here's the thing. Asta knows exactly who the Hound is, and he knows all about the Vimar family. They're a prestigious house known for their incredible piercing power, almost like master archers. But they raised one of their kids separately, the Hound. He was trained to be nothing more than a hunting dog for the front lines. So Asta asks him straight up, "Why are you wasting your time protecting garbage like Frizen?" The Hound is shocked to hear his family name. He demands to know who Asta is. Asta just ignores him and asks the question again. At this point, the Hound is convinced the fear of death has finally made Asta snap. He demands to know what Asta wants with this information, but Asta just keeps repeating the same question. Agitated, the Hound throws his weapon right at Asta. He dodges it and calmly asks the question one more time. Asta is slowly walking closer, but the Hound is confident he can take him down before he gets there. He plans to use his retrieval spell to catch Asta off guard, but to his absolute shock, Asta snatches the weapon mid-air. Now, face to face, Asta tells him he's raised dogs before, and they always get agitated when you repeat a sound. The Hound is furious, thinking Asta is comparing him to an animal. Asta just looks at him and says it's not a comparison. He's telling him exactly what he is. Before the Hound can even react, Asta hits him with his own weapon. Frizen starts screaming, telling the Hound he can't lose to some brat. But it's way too late for that. The Hound is completely under Asta's control. Before he can even move, Asta lands a body-shattering punch to end it all, leaving Frizen frozen in total shock. Asta turns to Frizen and mocks him, asking if he's still hiding behind other people. Frizen is furious and pulls out a demonic device. But before he can even activate it, Asta relieves him of his hand. He screams in pure agony as blood just gushes out. You and I both know that's a fitting end for a coward. He knows it's over, screaming at Asta to just stay the hell away from him. Frizen gets desperate, resorting to threats, saying Asta can't stop the demonic realm if he dies. He reminds Asta that all his comrades are going to die if the realm isn't shut down. But Asta's reply is chilling. He's willing to wait for the realm to consume everyone. He tells Frizen to enjoy the show because he's next. And that's the moment Frizen realizes he's not dealing with a hero. He's found a psycho. He can't believe it. Asta doesn't care about the demonic realm, and he's ready to let his own friends die. Fane starts to wonder. Is Asta even human? He tries again, shouting about how everyone will die, but Asta's face doesn't change. He just doesn't care. Frizen screams. Asta just dashes forward, saying the method to stop it is simple. In a flash, Asta grabs his right hand and yanks off the artifact. He tells Frizen he isn't the only one who knows how this thing works, then slams his own hand on the core, shutting down the realm himself. Frizen is just paralyzed in shock, as Asta promises he will never ever let him forget this. You see, Asta remembers how Declan pinned a mountain of crimes on Frizen before having him executed. And that's exactly why Asta had been chasing him in the first place, to stop that from happening. Asta recalls the chase, how he almost lost his mind hunting Frizen for so long. Even as the best tracker, he couldn't find him. He admits Frizen was one hell of a runner, crisscrossing the entire planet to escape him. Asta searched everywhere, his hands soaked in blood. The chase finally led him straight to the demonic realm. Without a second thought, Asta plunged right in. Now pay attention because this is where his entire world fell apart. He crawled back out of that hell only to find a troubleshooter waiting for him. The guy said he had news but was too terrified to enter the realm himself, so he just waited outside. And the news was the worst possible outcome. Zen was already dead. Apparently Declan had already caught him squeezing out every last secret about forbidden magic. Asta describes feeling completely hollow, just sitting there for days, staring blankly at the sky. After hearing all this, Zen pathetically claims he doesn't know what Asta's talking about, saying he's just an attendant. Asta ignores him, noticing the guy is bleeding out way too fast. He pops open a potion and forces it down Zen's throat, telling him he's not allowed to die until he hears the end of the story. But deep down, Zen sees this as his only chance, a chance to find a way to escape. Asta continues talking about how he saw a wyvern flying free, and realized he'd become an empty shell just venting rage. In that moment, he decided to let go of his revenge. But fate, it seems, had other plans. He ran right into Zen. And as Ven plots his escape, Asta slams his head straight into the ground. Okay, I know what you're thinking. This is where it gets absolutely brutal. Asta tells Zen he managed to document exactly how all of his comrades died. And now he's going to take his sweet time recreating every single moment of that pain on Zen's body. Tears and sweat stream down Zen's face as he realizes Asta is going to enjoy every second of this. 2 hours later, Jara finally breaks into the testing ground, screaming for her attendants to find the students and save them. She's furious. An ancient spell took her 2 hours to break, and she refuses to lose a single student. Just then, an assistant runs up, showing her the system's core. It's already been restored to normal. Jara immediately tells them to prioritize rescuing students over finding the intruder. She also orders them to keep it quiet, no announcements, since they don't know how the intruder might react. Soon, every single student is accounted for, leaving Jara completely baffled. She can't wrap her head around it. They were under attack for over 2 hours and not one student died. Suddenly, Perun contacts her, saying he's accessed the internal control room feed. And when he shows her what he sees, you and I are left staring at 2 mangled bodies on the floor. Jara is racking her brain who could have pulled off such a brutal attack. Then it clicks. She remembers seeing Asta's profile just the other day. She turns and her eyes lock directly with Asta's. And you and I can see it plain as day that kid is hiding something big. Moments later, the headmaster himself shows up, claiming he rushed over as fast as he possibly could. Jara is stunned. The headmaster came all the way from the eastern edge of the continent in almost no time at all. But the headmaster, he just seems pleased that Jara handled the situation so cleanly. He's also very interested in the report Jara sent him, specifically the part about Asta dealing with the intruders so brutally. See, every mage carries something called a heart demon, a darkness that can erupt without any warning. And most of the time when that demon comes out to play, things get ugly. In his past life, Asta never had one because he just followed orders. But seeing his comrades die to forbidden magic, that lit a fire in him. A burning rage that he buried deep, deep down. Or so he thought. Running into Friesen in that trial corridor uncorked every single emotion he'd been bottling up for years. Asta felt like a walking bomb ready to go off at any second. A week has passed since the incident. He figures now is the perfect time to start absorbing the Crimson Fire secret tome. Now pay attention, because the secret art he mastered before was a neutral, non-attribute style given to all troubleshooters. This is his first time ever trying to learn an elemental secret art like Crimson Fire. That's why he's read the first stages over and over, while also peeking at the end to make sure it all adds up. Even though the primary mana circuits look similar to his old Heavenly Origin technique, just circulating mana through the Crimson Fire paths only creates fire-aspected energy. It means the mental image he holds has to be perfectly maintained or it all falls apart. And just like that, he activates the tome. Mana rushes in, igniting a flame in his heart that blazes through his hands. Now he starts compressing the spell. He immediately realizes this is taking a way bigger toll on his body than his normal non-attribute mana ever did. But he pulls it off, successfully absorbing a piece of it. Asta knows he's now one step closer to getting his revenge on Farron. He's glad he finally managed to add the fire attribute to his basic arts. Just as he finishes, he feels an immense presence right outside the building. There's no doubt about it, whoever it is, they're trying to call him out. Asta doesn't even hesitate. He steps outside and is shocked to see the old dwarf headmaster standing there. The headmaster says he finally gets why Jara was so suspicious. Asta's control over fire mana was just too clean. He admits Asta is on another level. Asta just calls him principal, but the old man corrects him, it's headmaster. And then the headmaster unleashes a tidal wave of aura from his body, making Asta wonder what the hell is happening. But he's a former troubleshooter. Fear isn't really in his vocabulary. Okay, I know what you're thinking, this old man is no joke. The headmaster states that as the highest authority he deserves some respect. Asta immediately bows his head, shouting his greetings at the top of his lungs. The headmaster tells him to quiet down. He can scream all he wants, but no one will hear. He's already blocked all sound in the area. Asta is shocked but also impressed by how sharp the old man is. He was trying to get attention, but the headmaster was already one step ahead. So Asta cuts to the chase and asks why he's here. The headmaster says simply, "I have questions," and Asta's answers will decide everything. The headmaster then starts to sit down, but the pressure he releases is so immense, it crushes Asta to his knees. He tells Asta that JRO thinks he's hiding something and he's very interested. Asta is blown away by his power. He can't believe this is the same guy who fumbled his speech in the Grand Hall. There's no other way to put it, the headmaster is an absolute monster. But even so, Asta doesn't think the headmaster can compare to Declan. Using that thought, Asta finds a way through the headmaster's overwhelming power and cuts off its flow. Now free Asta looks him in the eye and says he knows this is about what happened in the trial corridor. The headmaster is surprised, he's not even trying to hide it. Asta just says it's not worth hiding, and you and I just watched him face a monster without blinking. Yeah, Asta would have preferred it stayed a secret, but some things are just too big to hide. Asta plays it cool, asking the headmaster if there's anything he'd like to know. Stick with me, this interrogation is going to be wild. But he's totally thrown off. One second the old man is dead serious, the next he's all smiles. It's giving him whiplash. The headmaster says he'll just ask some questions, and Asta is free to answer what he can. Better than a beating, right? With that agreement, Asta takes a seat ready to hear what the old man has to say. But before the questions even start, Asta decides to tell a little story of his own. He talks about a wyvern getting hunted, and just like that he has the headmaster's complete attention. This prompts the headmaster to declare this a battlefield, telling Asta to call him senior or get knocked out flat. Asta isn't stupid. He bows obediently, calling him senior, and the headmaster compliments how fast he learns. Once they're on the same page, the headmaster unleashes a terrifying aura. Now he asks Asta why he left the intruders in such a brutal state. Asta is floored. He realizes the headmaster's insane anger isn't aimed at him but at the intruders. So Asta asks what the plan is. The headmaster's response, he's going to crush the intruders and their sponsors. Not only that, he guarantees the emperor himself will sign off on the whole operation. He's also planning on getting his old crew back together. Asta immediately figures out he means the legendary war mages who fought beside him. With that, Asta knows these are no ordinary soldiers he's calling in. Asta then tries to pin the blame, saying everything leads back to Declan. But the headmaster sees right through his lie. Asta's impressed that old man is sharp. It would have been nice if it worked though. Asta finally comes clean, revealing the real culprit is Vimar. The headmaster asks if they're from the Vimar family, but Asta says one is Friesen, a Magitech engineer. The headmaster demands hard evidence, but Asta just smirks, asking if he needs to be spoon-fed every little detail. The old man cannot believe the sheer nerve on this kid. He asks how Asta even knows about Weimar and Friesen. Asta then calmly lays out the entire situation. In the end, he explains it all perfectly, without ever mentioning his regression or the grimoire. Even so, Asta could feel just how furious the headmaster truly was. After the headmaster finally vents, he says he knows Asta wants to build a tower. This right here is where the whole conversation flips on its head. He then offers to fill the entire first floor with books for him. Asta is stoked, and thanks him for the insane offer. But there's a catch. The headmaster will give him an admission ticket if Asta does a little favor for him. The moment Asta hears that, he just knows he's about to get roped into something big. The headmaster can see the worry on his face and tells him to cheer up. He says the favor can wait, and points to the artifact that constructed the demonic realm. He admits it's dangerous, but its spatial severance ability would be a perfect defense for the library Asta wants. Asta can't argue with that logic. The artifact is incredibly useful. Since even the Academy's best professors couldn't break through it, it would be the ultimate defense for his tower. He has one problem though, he knows absolutely nothing about Magitech. The headmaster tells him to go see a woman named JRO. The headmaster assures Asta that he'll put in a good word, saying JRO is someone he can absolutely trust. But he's pretty sure JRO will be a lot more interested in Asta's true identity than he was. To handle that, the headmaster creates a cover story. The next day, Asta is studying when Damien and Chenbi appear. He's shocked to see the two have gained a serious amount of muscle in just 1 week. Asta's also surprised that the other students have gotten way closer to Chenbi and Damien. Chenbi explains that everyone's grateful for the bracelet info he shared during the trial corridor. They were even gifted elixirs, and their parents helped them out as well. Chenbi thanks Asta, but Asta says he deserves the credit for convincing the students all on his own. Asta then asks what exactly Damien did during the trial corridor. Chenbi explains that Damien bound a golem with plant magic and put it to work, naming his creations Cerberus 1 through 3. Just as Chenbi sits down to have a proper conversation with Asta, JRO herself shows up, telling Asta to come to her office that very instant. When he arrives, she asks if he knows why he's there. Asta simply replies he's pretty sure she didn't call him in for counseling. You and I both know this is the start of something wild. JRO confirms the story. The headmaster already told her Asta is the descendant of an ancient war mage. She also heard Vimar was behind the attack, and Asta confirms it. He calls them all trash, Declan included. And you and I know the headmaster has already set the entire stage. So instead of Asta using his blander identity and drawing attention, the headmaster crafted a perfect cover story. He's a descendant of a war mage who had beef with Declan and Weimar. Asta is completely on board since it perfectly aligns with his own secret goals. JRO points out the story has some holes, but she won't dig deeper. The headmaster's word is enough. She assures Asta she'll cover for him, seeing that he's no threat to the academy. Then Asta gets weird, staring at JRO's chest and commenting that she's way older than him. JRO almost loses it but manages to calm down, deciding to take it as a weird, awkward compliment. She then thanks Asta, saying he's the reason the students in the corridor were saved. Asta seizes the opportunity. He pitches his idea for a new library and asks for her support with publications. JRO agrees without a second thought. Asta lets out a sigh of relief. With that, he's just secured the last of the 3 academic connections he needed. Now for the main event, the artifact. JRO warns him that researching it could take a very long time. She says there are risks, but that's not a huge problem. They can just destroy it if things go south. Her real worry, the powerful villains who will stop at nothing to get that gauntlet. And now a new player enters the game, a forbidden magic cabal known as Salvatium. Asta has never heard of them. JRO explains they're a union of mages who've mastered forbidden magic. They all operate differently, but they share one terrifying goal: to recreate the demonic realm. She's certain Friesen was connected to Salvatium, since he was the first one to almost succeed. With Friesen dead, JRO warns Asta that the cabal will now come after him to get the artifact. Apparently, their persistence is legendary enough to even rival Declan's forces. She tells Asta he could very well die. But when he hears this, he gets even more excited. Fear not a chance. The thought of fighting Salvatium fills him with joy. He'll find them first. JRO is just stunned watching this dangerous, almost unhinged smile spread across Asta's face. Asta then pulls out the gauntlet and simply hands it over, telling her to start her research. She agrees. But just then, an assistant bursts into the room, face pale with panic. The head of House Declan, Farron, has just arrived at the academy. A wave of pure shock hits Asta. The entire academy instantly goes into lockdown. The headmaster orders everyone to get ready. Students are rushed back to their dorms as security tightens around the perimeter. The headmaster, Parn, and JRO stand together, waiting to greet the man himself. This is the first time the headmaster has seen the new Declan, who took over the family at just 30 years old. Everyone knows the Declan family's crimes only got worse under Farron's rule. But the headmaster keeps a neutral face. Still, he's not happy. Farron is riding his mount straight into the academy grounds. That's a huge sign of disrespect. Tradition says everyone, no matter how powerful, walks on foot here. Farron finally arrives and asks, "Is it time yet?" The headmaster is confused, asking what he means. Declan then casually mentions he heard about the attack on the trial corridor. The headmaster fires back with the same energy, telling Declan that nothing has been officially confirmed yet. He's furious. The Declan family caused this mess, and now Farron is here pretending to be clueless. Farron flashes a fake smile, claiming he only came to offer his assistance. He opens his pocket dimension, revealing the heads of the attackers, and claims Weimar was their leader. Declan boasts about how he took care of the problem, wiping out Weimar and his entire family. Asta, watching from a rooftop, isn't surprised at all that Declan killed Weimar. But the timing is way too perfect. And you and I both know what that means. He realizes something's off. The only person he told about Weimar and Declan was the headmaster, and Declan appears the very next day. Was it just dumb luck, or is Declan playing a whole different level of chess? Either way, Asta's relieved. He finally has a shot at Declan this time around, even if the guy is leagues above him. A few days later, the academy is back to its usual fun vibe. But Farron's last visit left a mark. He announced plans to send one of Declan's direct descendants to the academy as a student. Let's be real, he's playing the hostage card, a power move only the big-shot houses can pull. And right on cue, as if they planned it, the Imperial House enrolls the third princess. That's a problem for next year, though. Right now, to get everyone's spirits up, the school throws the Pistaniki Festival. It's a victory party for students who fought back in the age of war. And Asta figures the academy is treating that brutal trial corridor just like a war. Smart move to lighten the mood. To make things even better, the academy approved alcohol. Total freedom for everyone. Even the stoic Damien is tempted to grab a drink with the mercenaries. Just then, an announcement echoes through the grounds: the award ceremony is starting. Everyone interested is told to gather at the Sage Hall. Damien couldn't care less, but Asta drags him along anyway. Now pay attention here because Asta is hyped. He's about to get paid for his hard work. After the headmaster wraps up his speech, the award presentation officially begins. They start calling names, telling the winners to come on stage. First up is Dahlia, then Damien, and then Evelyn. Chenbi gets called, and so does Asta. But as they walk up, Asta's wondering what the hell Evelyn did to earn an award. He's worried. He has zero memory of her from his past life, which is a major red flag. Still, he figures she must have pulled off something big during the trial court to get this kind of recognition. Finally, it's Asta's turn to receive his prize. The headmaster himself hands him an expensive box containing a top-grade elixir. After the ceremony, Asta and his crew run wild, having fun late into the night. Then the sky explodes with a massive fireworks display. Asta thinks it's a huge waste of money, but secretly plans to do the same thing when he finally builds his library. He imagines watching it all from the very top of his own tower. His dream, a festival that lasts an entire week, followed by a grand sage ascension ceremony. The next morning, a white owl from the headmaster delivers a message. Meet at the usual spot. Asta doesn't waste a second diving out the window. The location is an old deserted building once used by troubleshooters back in the day. I know what you're thinking. And yeah, it's the perfect place in the whole academy for a secret meeting. Asta steps inside and is surprised to see the headmaster actually clean the place up a bit. Once they're settled, Asta cuts to the chase. Old man, why'd you call me here so early? The headmaster just smiles and reminds him he owes him a favor. It hits Asta this is payback for that library pass. The headmaster claims it's an easy favor. All Asta has to do is deliver a letter to a friend. But before he even touches the letter, Asta's gut tells him this is going to be a disaster. He asks where he's supposed to go. The destination, the Hammer and Great Forest, where the target is hiding out. Asta's jaw drops. That forest is an ancient death trap crawling with monsters and packed with rare magical materials. He can't believe the headmaster wants him to find one person in a place like that. The old man just teases him, saying it's not that hard since other people live there. Just check a few base camps, he says. You'll find him eventually. Asta is about to unload a storm of complaints about the insane danger. But the headmaster cuts him off, saying he forgot to mention he prepared a little something beforehand. He slides a list in front of Asta, who is left completely speechless. Everything on it is ridiculously expensive and incredibly rare. The headmaster asks him what he was about to say. Asta swallows his complaints and immediately says he's ready for the job. Let's be honest, the reward is just way too good for him to even think about refusing. You and I just witnessed how Asta's life is changing. He's been getting insane rewards, including an IRA workshop artifact production voucher. That's a production voucher from a workshop so exclusive even noble families have to wait their turn. Let's be real, with an offer like this, you and I both know Asta can't possibly say no. The headmaster then admits he was already planning on calling his target back to the academy. Between the demon realm and Declan's mess, he figures it's time to finally call in a favor from an old comrade. But the guy claimed he was busy with personal business, so the headmaster wants Asta to go help him sort it out. In the end, Asta manages to negotiate even more compensation for the job, before finally taking his leave. After the meeting, Asta starts plotting his next move. He was going to use the top-grade elixir to boost his mana, but now he has 3 of them, so why stop there? With this new opportunity, he decides on a technique inspired by a knight's ether-reinforced body, known as the Monolith technique. This is a power that would let someone like Asta shatter the limits he had as a troubleshooter in his past life. Asta is thrilled. He's finally about to upgrade his ridiculously frail body. He's ecstatic to be a mage who's also about to get knight-level powers, so he sits down and immediately starts absorbing an elixir. He uses the same breathing technique as before, but this time he pours every last drop of the elixir's power directly into his body. The mana soaks into every joint, every muscle fiber, every single nerve cell. Within a minute, Asta's body feels like it's on fire thanks to the firebrand. But pay attention here, he maintains his focus, pushing past that first limit, circulating the mana through his entire body, not just the circuits. After that, he forces the mana straight into his muscle fibers. This pushes his body to its absolute breaking point, the pain so intense it feels like he's being torn apart. For a moment he considers stopping, but he grits his teeth and pushes forward, succeeding in acquiring the monols. In fact, he feels like he's blown past the goal he originally set for himself. Even if his durability can't handle the full output just yet, he's confident his reinforced body won't lose to a knight, and will be a huge problem for them once he's fully grown. Asta then decides to test out his new regeneration. He cuts himself, expecting the wound to heal in about 15 minutes, just like it did in his previous life. But to his absolute shock, the injury closes in seconds. We're talking completely insane troll-level regeneration. Asta can't believe it. He just got a massive unexpected bonus. With WJI's healing tome, he'd be as invincible as Damien, the monster of Blander. Just then he notices a faint trace of mana in a drop of his own blood on the floor. He tries to control it, and a bright light flashes, confirming that his blood now reacts to mana. He realizes the Blander family's healing art could be a game changer if he can master it. Apparently, the tome contains a proliferation formula for regenerating flesh and blood, and Asta considers talking to WJI about it. But then he scraps that idea. He wants absolutely nothing to do with that guy. Asta decides he'll talk to Lance instead, since she's coming for a parent consultation soon. A short while later, Lance appears relieved that Asta and Damon are both safe. Damon assures her he's doing fine. Lance then says Gammo sent a message about the Blander Lake and statue design that Damon proposed. Lance admits the proposal was good, but Gammo rejected it. Damon is crushed, but Lance tells him there's still a way. She tells Damon that if he can place in the top 16 of the Academy's midterm evaluation, she'll have the leverage to convince Gammo. The moment she says it, Asta sees her entire plan laid out. Lance tells Damon not to worry because he's got Asta and Chenbi to help him train. She then promises the two of them a huge reward if they can help Damon succeed. Asta knows he's been backed into a corner, but he has to play along. Lance is his only ticket to getting that proliferation formula. So with that, Asta promises Lance he'll help out. They ask Damon how well he knows the basics of magic, but he just stands there with a completely blank expression, having no idea what they are. He gets asked about his books and just pulls out a giant box filled with every single one he brought. Chenbi can't believe his eyes. He just knows they're about to walk through academic hell. Chenbi asks Damon if he turned in the assignments, and thankfully Damon says yes. He lets out a huge sigh of relief, thinking they dodged a bullet. Asta, however, is not convinced that's the whole truth. So when Asta actually checks Damien's grades, he realizes Damon is failing almost everything except culture class, which is probably thanks to his family's education. The big problems are any classes related to magic, and Asta is seriously worried he might get blasted during tutoring. Right in the middle of their panic, Furion suddenly shows up. He claims he overheard them needing help with Damien's studies. When they ask why he cares, he says he might be able to help out. Damien's face instantly lights up with hope, but Asta isn't buying it, and Furion sees the distrust. So he decides to show them something to win them over. Okay, now watch this, because things are about to get complicated. Furion whips out a sheet of paper that Asta recognizes immediately. Turns out it's a complete breakdown of the most recent Academy exams, including tests from every single professor. Basically a cheat sheet for everything from Mon to M3 classes. Chenbi is completely blown away. Asta, on the other hand, hasn't forgotten what Furion did back in the trial corridor. Still, he has to admit this is a ray of hope. He really wants to punch the guy, but for now he holds back. Just then, Furion says there's one condition. Asta immediately thinks he won't have to hold back for much longer. Furion reveals his price. He wants Asta's help in the combat evaluation after midterms. With Asta's skills, he'd be unstoppable. Asta doesn't even waste a second before accepting. He even tells Furion they can head to the training room right now since he's itching to beat someone up anyway. Furion quickly backs down, revealing the training isn't for him but for someone else. Asta's mood instantly sours. Furion tells Asta to follow him and the two head outside the academy. After winding through a bunch of alleys, Asta is about to lose it when they finally arrive at a private training center. Just one look at the place, and Asta knows whoever he's supposed to train is loaded with cash. Moments later, Asta finally meets the client, and it is none other than Dahlia Day. I mean, can you believe this? Furion pulls Dahlia aside, asking if she's sure, but she's firm it's Asta or nobody because she refuses to use her family's influence. Dahlia begs Asta to help her, but Asta just hits her with a counteroffer. He suggests Dahlia use Furion as her trainer instead of him. He tells her to train with Furion until the exams are done, since he's busy with Damon's private lessons. Furion is floored, and even more shocked when Dahlia actually seems to be considering it. He yells at Asta, reminding him he already paid his side of the deal with the study materials. But Asta just fires back that while he paid for the info, he still owes for what he did to Chenbi in the trial corridor. Total shock. Furion never saw that coming. Dahlia then steps in, telling Asta his offer sounds good to her. Furion explodes, asking why they're making decisions for him when he never even agreed to it. He tries to puff up his chest about being a proud Dai family descendant, but Asta just roasts him, saying he needs a punching bag and Furion will do just fine. With his pride completely shattered, Furion has no choice but to walk away, muttering about his exams. Asta sighs in relief. Finally, Chenny will be able to relax a little. Asta then turns to Dahlia, confirming he'll do the job since he's now been paid in full. He asks Dahlia if she's ready to train in close combat, but she's just standing there totally overwhelmed. Meanwhile, Eve is meeting with one of her lackeys, and it seems she wants him to steal the exam questions. She gives him an address where he can meet an expert in that kind of dirty work. Back to Asta, he still can't believe he has to train Dahlia. And trust me, you and I need to hear this next part in his past life. They were mortal enemies. In fact, Asta would have killed her over and over again if it wasn't for her reinforcements. After becoming Dai's chief mage, she and Asta's paths would never cross again. But grudges aside, Asta sees the massive potential in training Dahlia for his own benefit. At one point, Dahlia actually manages to suppress Declan, which gets Asta thinking maybe he should speed up his plans. He's glad she agreed to this deal because if he doesn't beat her down now, he might not get this opportunity again. Asta then asks her a simple question in a one-on-one fight: what's most important? Dahlia has no clue, but she's dead set on learning the move Asta used against Exter, surprising him with her laser focus. But he tells her that's not how it works. She needs to find a style that fits her. He gives her a hypothetical, a rank 8 mage versus a rank 9. Who wins? She says rank 8, obviously. But Asta tells her she's dead wrong. The winner is whoever cracks the other's skull first. To prove his point, he fires a mono bullet right at her head. First strike, he says, is everything. By the time Asta starts heading back to the academy, the sun is already setting. He knows that a few more beatings like this and Dahlia is going to get seriously strong. Just then he remembers Damon is still lurking in the background. Meanwhile, Evelyn's goon is stressing about his mission. It hits him that Evelyn isn't just handing out contracts. She's building a network of noble connections. And if he plays his cards right, he could become a part of that powerful web. He remembers how everything blew up last time, but he's sure things will be different now. He finally arrives at his destination, which looks like a totally normal tea house. The attendant asks for his order, and the guy drops the code phrase he was given: freeze the dragonhorn tea hot. The attendant just tells him to wait a moment. He breathes a sigh of relief. This is the place. Saying that code in a regular shop would have been beyond embarrassing. When the attendant returns, he notes the guy's nervousness, saying it's normal for people who hear the words dark merchant. However, this is where things get interesting. Who would ever suspect that this bright, beautiful place is actually a black market? The attendant asks what brings him here, and he spills it. He needs the exam papers for the academy's basic first-year class. The attendant mentions someone is willing to sell those exact papers and asks which department he needs. He's looking for the magic department, and the attendant says it's his lucky day the seller is meeting him next weekend. Then he asks if Evelyn's lackey wants to come along. The dude instantly realizes this is a test. The attendant is trying to see how much nerve he has. Still, he agrees to go, saying it's just good business to check out the seller and the product. Deep down, he knows there's no backing out now. The attendant is pleased and starts giving him the time and place for the meeting, warning him not to write anything down. And as he's whispering the details, Asta is right outside, listening to every single word. Asta knows this can't be a coincidence. An exam paper seller and buyer appearing at the same time, too convenient. He realizes how shady this whole deal is, especially since no one has even mentioned a price. So he decides to see this through himself. He has the perfect Declan uniform for the job, so why wait? He reaches into his subspace and pulls out the full outfit. He wonders if he should kick things off by robbing the richest guy around. Meanwhile, the attendant is thinking about his dangerous job when Asta walks in fully dressed in Declan gear. The attendant is completely shocked. He never expected to see one of Declan's elite mage units in his tea house. Asta tells him to drop the act and forget the codes. The guy immediately snaps to attention, asking what Asta needs. Asta's reply is simple: he's looking for a subspace pouch. The attendant starts sweating bullets. He can't believe Asta might be looking for Callahan's pouch, which vanished when he died. He's more worried about why Asta is looking for it here, and quickly denies ever seeing such an item. Asta then casually asks about the boy who just left, mentioning he looked extremely suspicious. The attendant is stunned, silent. Now tell me, how in the world is he supposed to talk his way out of this one? Asta's patience wears thin, so he unleashes this terrifying aura, letting the attendant know he's done waiting for answers. The guy freezes, realizing he's not dealing with some regular Declan mage. This is something else entirely. He completely caves, promising to spill everything they discussed, swearing it has nothing to do with Declan. Asta just stares him down coldly, replying that he'll be the one to judge if there's nothing to hide. But just as the attendant is about to talk, Asta cuts him off. Confess everything, he demands. On the way to the warehouse, the attendant nervously asks why they have to go, and Asta says he needs to see it for himself. Asta locks eyes with him, making the guy sweat. Are you hiding something, he asks, pushing all the right buttons. As they head down to the basement, the attendant gets even more scared, asking if this is really necessary. Asta just smirks. If he's innocent, he has nothing to fear. He swears it on the name of Declan. He promises the guy that whatever he confesses will stay a secret, as long as it doesn't involve Declan. And that's when the attendant finally breaks, revealing the boy was acting under orders from Evelyn. He admits he's just a broker, but he thinks she's trying to buy academy papers on the black market. Now you gotta understand, Evelyn is the academy's golden girl, a perfect role model with unshakable morals. This reveal leaves Asta completely stunned. Why would someone like her resort to something so dirty? He can't believe it. While some people are stuck tutoring, others just throw money around to get what they want. When they get to the warehouse, Asta sees it's filled with a ton of high-end items. He tells the attendant that at first glance nothing seems off, but he's going to check everything just to be sure. Then Asta tells him to get 2 subspace pouches ready, because they're taking anything that looks remotely suspicious. The attendant's blood runs cold. He knows he is absolutely completely screwed. Meanwhile, Chenbi is struggling to teach Damien, who insists his own weird methods are better even if the spell works. But Chenbi has to remind him that the stabilization formula is actually kind of important. Furion is on the verge of screaming. This isn't tutoring, it's a special kind of hell. Here's the thing you and I both know about guys like Damien: he's a genius, but one with zero common sense. In fact, nothing Damien does makes sense. The spells shouldn't work yet, he somehow makes them manifest with ease. It makes Furion wonder what would happen if Asta ever tried to teach Dahlia with that same energy. Right on cue, Dahlia appears, and Furion almost has a heart attack. Asta literally beat her up as part of her training. A week flies by. Chenbi asks Furion how the grading is going because his side is perfect. Furion tells him it's the same story for him, not a single mistake. Damon can't believe it. He actually got everything right. Furion is just blown away. Damon blew past all his expectations, and he can only pray Asta is having the same luck. But Asta is busy watching Evelyn's lackey, Debit trying his best not to just knock him out right there. He considers wrecking their deal now, but knows that if he does, someone else will just buy the papers instead. A little later, Debit arrives at the meeting spot and has to get past a heavy-set bouncer. That evening, he returns to Evelyn's room with the exam materials. One look, and they know it's the real thing. Evelyn then tells her shadowy assistant they'll keep giving Debit more opportunities like this. Debit just grins, thinking his family will finally have to acknowledge him now. Evelyn dismisses him, telling him he can go. She assures him they'll call again once they've confirmed everything is in order. She adds that from now on, Debit will handle distributing the exam papers to their clients, and he eagerly agrees. The second he's gone, Evelyn's face twists into a smug grin as she mocks him for being such a massive idiot. She asks her assistant how his other assignment is going, and he confirms it's going perfectly. In just a few days, every single illegal job Evelyn was tied to will be transferred to Debit's name. Evelyn warns him to make sure it's flawless. After all, setting up Debit was the entire point of this operation. But they have no idea Asta heard every single rotten word. And he cannot believe how twisted she truly is. So Asta's in a bind. How does he bust Evelyn for cheating without just destroying everything while also teaching her a lesson she'll never forget? He's got the whole thing recorded on a crystal orb, but you and I know just dropping that evidence would be way too simple for him. Asta's used to solving problems with his fists, but he knows this situation needs a completely different and much smarter approach. Then it hits him. An absolutely brilliant idea on how to force Evelyn onto the right path. Asta grabs the exam papers and starts meticulously copying everything onto a fresh sheet. He's actually impressed with his own penmanship, remembering how he used to practice copying handwriting as a kid. He never thought he'd use that old skill for something this insane, but hey, he's pretty proud of the perfect forgery. Once he's done, he looks over at Evelyn and tells her she's about to become a very, very good person. Meanwhile, Dahlia is finally getting the hang of what Asta was teaching her about landing the first critical strike in a fight. Soon enough, the exams are over and every student is sweating, wondering if they actually passed. One of Evelyn's clients, a guy named Demon von Haramar, is feeling particularly confident. He's bragging to all his buddies about how he completely aced the exam, not a single doubt in his mind. Turns out, Demon is the eldest son of a viscount, whose family basically controls the kingdom's entire grain supply. And Evelyn is thinking she's a genius, locking down a partnership with someone that powerful, all thanks to some leaked test questions. In fact, she has 4 different deals, just like this one, all running at the same time. She's convinced this is the deal of the century, and that her life of crime is just getting started. But then an examiner walks into the hall and tells Demon to come with him. The director wants a word. Now pay attention, because this is the exact moment pure cold fear starts to creep into Evelyn's heart. The next morning, all first-year students are summoned to the Grand Hall for an emergency meeting. The innocent students are totally clueless, wondering why they've been dragged out of their dorms so suddenly. But others know what's up. Rumors of a massive cheating scandal are flying, and Evelyn is shaking, praying it can't be traced to her. She's telling herself it's impossible. She was careful. She left no evidence behind. For a second, she wonders if D-Bay messed up, but she dismisses it. The guy might be slow, but he isn't reckless. An examiner steps forward, his voice booming, as he tells everyone to be silent. He says he knows rumors are spreading, but he's here to set the record straight for everyone. The examiner reveals that several students were caught cheating during the first-year midterm exams. He goes on about what a deep shame and dishonor this scandal brings to their prestigious academy. For the students who already suspected something, this is all the confirmation they need. It's real. The innocent kids know the cheaters are toast, and Evelyn feels like she's about to be physically sick from fear. The examiner announces the ringleader has been identified. It's Debay who's been expelled along with 4 accomplices, and the academy is suing for damages. But then he adds a twist. It wasn't the faculty who uncovered this plot. It was a student with an incredible sense of justice. The examiner tells the assembly that they are gathered to praise the courage of this exemplary student. And then he calls out a name, Evelyn, please step forward. Evelyn's world completely shatters. And as the students start cheering for her, she can't believe what she's hearing. She tries to tell them it wasn't her, but they all just think she's being humble, not even letting her explain. Before she knows it, she's being pushed to the front of the stage, hailed as the hero of the day. Evelyn is in a state of absolute shock, her mind reeling from how horribly wrong this has all gone. And in the back of the crowd, Asta is clapping, telling her to stay on the righteous path now that she's a champion of justice. He basically just turned her into a public symbol for correcting corruption, the one thing she is. A week later, the official rankings are posted, and students swarm the board to see their results. Damon and his friends are floored when they see he ranked 18th, way better than they expected. Asta, cool as ever, just tells Damien to look closer. Demon the cheater is ranked 7th, way higher than him. Just then, an examiner runs up, apologizing for posting the wrong list. He rips it down and puts up the real results. This time, Damon moves up to 16th place, and the kid is practically losing his mind with joy. And you and I both know Asta is just happy that Damien passed, because now he can finally collect his reward, the multiplication formula. Chenbi is celebrating Damon's victory, saying he might have a knack for teaching after all. He's thinking of staying as an assistant, but Asta immediately snaps and tells him to shut his mouth. Look, he didn't want to be harsh, but he can't stand by and watch Chenbi throw his potential away. And here's why. Asta reminds him about that cheating incident involving an assistant. That guy was so desperate for cash, he was selling exam answers just to make rent. Asta asks him if he knows how long it takes an assistant to become a professor. Chenbi guesses maybe 3 or 4 years. Asta just scoffs, asking who fed him that lie. Turns out it was Pun. So Asta asks him straight up, do you even want to be a professor? And Chenbi admits it seems rewarding. Chenbi thinks Asta believes he's not cut out for it, but Asta says no, there's another path if he really wants to teach. Forget being a professor. Asta tells him to become an archmage, someone so powerful that no one would ever dare challenge him. A huge smile spreads across Asta's face as he paints the picture for him. Once he's an archmage, he can train students any way he wants, just like he did with Damien. You can see it clicking in Chenbi's head. This is exactly what Asta wanted to push his friend to dream so much bigger. He saw Chenbi's real talent with Damien. Settling for a mere assistant, that would be a total waste. Asta wants Chenbi to become a legend, so he can finally repay him for saving his life. Meanwhile, 2 mysterious figures are meeting about some ancient ruins just discovered in the Hamlin forest. And you just know, this is going to be a massive deal later on. A few days later, the trio goes to get their reward from Lankency. She tells them the multiplication formula they asked for isn't that difficult to get. In fact, she's giving Asta a high-tier formula. Asta's mind is blown, he never expected something so valuable. Now pay close attention here. Lankency turns to Chenbi, revealing she did some research, and his family is in serious trouble. She asks if he knew, and Chenbi admits he does, but says things are just getting worse. Lankency makes an offer House Blander can solve all his family's problems and give them a much better life. But Chenbi doesn't even take a second to think about his answer. He thanks Lankency for the huge offer, but tells her he's fine. Lance tells him not to be rude, and he promises he's not. He just looks at her and says he wants to stay friends with Damien forever. And you can just catch Damon blushing in the background when he hears that. Lankency is seriously impressed by his loyalty. Chenbi then asks if he can request something else instead, and she agrees. He reveals that all he wants is a chance to study magic at House Blander someday, to broaden his own horizons. She asks if that's really enough, and he says yes. When Gamu hears this, she is completely overwhelmed with joy for her son. So she decides to one-up the reward. A letter is sent to Chenbi announcing that House Blander is now his official patron. Reading the letter, Chenbi is so shocked he almost faints, breaking down in tears of absolute happiness. In the end, the midterm evaluations wrapped up with everyone getting exactly what they wanted. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Happy ending, right? Wrong. JRO announces interpersonal combat is next for all first years. All regular classes are suspended. From now on, every lesson is focused on practical fighting skills. But here's the weird part, she says the training is left to the students' own discretion. She clarifies that prep classes will still happen, but they aren't mandatory at all. One of the students asks what their own discretion even means. JRO explains they are free to attend classes or not. They can literally go home and train if they want. She tells them not to worry because the professors will be running the prep classes. And on top of that, they're inviting a bunch of grade 5 certified combat mages from the Imperial Court. After the chaos dies down, Asta is left wondering why the schedule was changed so suddenly. He realizes the professors are hiding something big. This decision didn't come from them, it came from way higher up. Later that day, Asta gets a message from the headmaster. A meeting. 8 p.m. tonight. That night, Asta heads to their usual spot and is completely shocked by what he finds. You and I are about to see just how serious this is. The headmaster has erected barriers strong enough to hide the entire warehouse. With the headmaster basically using the place as his private resort, Asta sees the perfect opportunity to test a new multiplication formula he just learned, infusing it into a ruby. And you know what? It actually works, pulling in ambient mana to perfectly mirror the original ruby. But the power output still isn't enough, and he's about to go all out when the headmaster suddenly shows up. Asta's surprised to see him, but the headmaster is way more shocked by the glowing red gems. He asks if Asta can use any magic with them, and Asta gives him a live demo stunning the old dwarf. He can't believe Asta is storing raw, unrefined mana in rubies, and then casting spells directly from them. He starts yelling questions about its range before demanding to know where Asta even got the rubies. Asta promises to tell him everything, but says he needs a little favor from him first. And deep down, you and I both know he's just found the perfect test dummy for his new power. The headmaster scoffs, boasting that no matter what Asta does, he won't touch a single hair on his head. Asta doesn't even argue. He just gets down to business, merging the rubies to build up sufficient mana. That's when the headmaster realizes this isn't a game and starts screaming, but Asta refuses to back down. Once the skill is ready, he unleashes it on the old dwarf, causing a huge explosion that Asta still finds unimpressive. When the dust finally settles, the headmaster is standing there completely losing his mind. He screams at Asta, demanding to know who he really is, and where in the world he came from. The old man admits he knew Asta's mana was pure, but what he just witnessed is beyond his comprehension. Asta just shrugs it off, asking if he thinks he's some great demon possessing a body. The headmaster replies that Asta's definition of ordinary is seriously warped. He even offers to beat some sense into him, admitting the magic is so strange he can barely grasp how it works. He then asks where the rubies disappeared to, but Asta just casually brushes off the question. When they finally calm down enough to talk, Asta asks the old man why he was summoned. The old man reveals it's about the Great Forest activating an orb on his table to show him the problem. Asta looks into the orb, and his face is just a mask of pure shock and fear. So let's talk about the Great Forest of Hamlin, because this is where everything gets serious. It's an ancient, untouched land, swarming with monsters where humans have somehow managed to survive. But only the most elite mercenaries dare to actually operate inside the forest. And the image Asta sees, it's those same hardened mercenaries trembling in absolute terror. They're up against the undead, but a new kind that moves by soul, not memory. They're self-creating horrors. The headmaster reveals a terrifying creature called the Destroyer, sealed in the ruins, has broken free. On top of that, vengeful spirits are now clawing their way up from the depths following it. The situation is urgent, but none of the headmaster's disciples can leave on such short notice. He explains that whoever goes must set out in less than 2 days from this very moment. The headmaster asks for Asta's help, assuring him he can keep his reward even if he refuses the offer. He calls it a gift for the younger generation, which is a nice way of saying there's no extra reward money. The headmaster lets him know that this choice is entirely his. It's not a matter of temptation or payment anymore because people's lives are hanging in the balance. He's still telling Asta to be careful when Asta just cuts him off and says he'll go. The old man is stunned. Asta explains he knows the headmaster is worried about a friend out there who won't retreat. He admits he's no saint, but he's also not the kind of trash who would bargain with someone else's life. But deep down, here's the real truth. Asta would have gone even if forbidden because he believes the forest holds the key to the power he seeks. After their talk is over, the gears start turning. The headmaster gives him a teleportation ticket for quick passage and an artifact cloak with protective magic. Asta teases the old man, joking that if he keeps giving things away, he'll have nothing left for himself. The old man cuts him off, warning him that when the time comes for battle, it'll be too late to prepare. And with that, he hands him a mask. Trust me, you and I are about to watch our hero go completely undercover. The mask has a built-in tracker, so his friend can keep an eye on him from a distance. The headmaster then says that based on his results from the final exam, he'll register everything in his name, but first he needs to know about Asta's deal with House Blandor. Asta just shrugs it off. He tells the old man not to worry, promising he'll handle it personally. He then shoots a letter off to Chenby and Damien saying he's leaving for training and not to look for him. Instead of getting upset, Damon gets fired up and heads out to train too. Meanwhile, in Greentown, Asta is alone in a warehouse planning his next move. At the same time, the old man's friend, Orn, is trying to hire a guide named Ray to take him into the forest. Ray is whining about how scared he is, but Arn reminds him about their contract between the 4th base camp and Greentown. On top of that, Ray was already paid 4 times the normal rate for the risk, and yet he's still trying to cancel. The guide gets cocky, telling Orn he won't find anyone else to take him at this hour. Ray even tries playing the victim card, saying he wants to live and monsters could show up any second. But deep down, this guy is just a scammer trying to squeeze every last penny from Arn. He's not crazy enough to actually go in the forest. His real plan is to ditch Orn at the first chance and use the money to set up a quiet life somewhere. And just when you think this guide is getting away with it, Asta steps in. The two men freak out at the masked figure, but Asta just flips the question on Arn. Once Arn identifies himself, Asta confirms he's the headmaster's mentee. Asta knows he's in the right place, then tells Arn he's free to call him senior. The moment Ray realizes backup has arrived, he tries to act smart, offering Arn his map, so they can just go into the forest themselves. He phrases it to make the map seem incredibly valuable, and the unsuspecting Arn actually agrees, saying he and Asta will find a way to manage on their own. Ray thanks him and is about to walk away with a smug smile, but Asta orders him to stop. His voice is ice cold as he gives Ray exactly 1 second to sit back down. Ray still doesn't get it, but that 1 second is up. Asta descends on him, beating him senseless. Orn can only watch in horror as Asta pummels the guy, wondering if this kid could actually defeat the destroyer. Okay, let's pause. While Asta handles that mess, 2 very shady men are meeting somewhere else. They're at some strange seal trying to break it open, but it's not going as fast as they expected. They're shocked the beast inside hasn't woken up yet, even though its deathly aura is filling the air. Knowing Asta is heading for a monster in the forest, one of them decides to intercept him while the other works on the seal. The first guy, Solon, asks his friend Kellogg if he can really handle Asta, and Kellogg just boasts about all the mages he's killed. To him, Asta isn't even a real threat. Meanwhile, Asta and his party are already deep in the forest, with the mercilessly beaten Ray now forced to lead them. Orn is just glad everything's going smoothly now that Asta showed up and took control. Since Asta is totally covered up, he can't guess his age, but based on his height he figures they must be about the same. It turns out Asta's new codename is New Moon, and he's the kind of guy who provides instant solutions to any problem. Just then, Asta asks the guide if he wants help with that heavy-looking backpack, offering to put it in his subspace storage. Ray humbly refuses, saying the bag has emergency supplies he might need instantly, so it's better if he just keeps it on. Asta immediately knows what's up. Ray hasn't given up on his plan to rob Orn while they're in the forest. A few moments later, Ray senses something charging toward them. He yells for Arn to be careful, as they spot orcs on wolfback speeding right at them. Ray starts freaking out because they aren't even close to the 2nd base camp, which is supposed to be orc territory. Arn freezes solid with fear, not knowing what to do, but suddenly glowing red rubies fill the air around them. Before he attacks, Asta calmly tells Arn to put up a shield. As the orcs get into range, he unleashes hell. And as those rubies fly towards the orcs, you and I both know it is absolutely game over for them. The attack hits, unleashing a massive explosion that forces Oberyn and Ray to shield their eyes. When the smoke finally clears, all that's left is pure destruction. And when Ray witnesses just how powerful Asta is, he finally gives in, ready to use his subspace, because he now accepts there is absolutely no escape. Asta just tells him to go for it. Now stick with me, because their journey only gets wilder from here. They run into some seriously jacked goblins, which Asta one-shots without breaking a sweat. Asta is completely stunned by the goblins' appearance, wondering if the destroyer mutated them. Ray suggests getting a closer look, and Asta is all for it. After a quick scan, Ray identifies them as Kenti goblins, natives of the 2nd base camp. But the fact that these goblins are so far from home means one of 2 things. They're expanding their territory or something is hunting them. Asta states the obvious: they're being hunted. A quick look at their claws confirms it. They're caked in dust and tree bark, and their feet are absolutely shredded to pieces. Every sign points to one terrifying fact: they were running for their lives. Ray immediately suggests a detour. Goblins hunt in packs and are supposed to be the apex predators in this area. He knows whatever scared them off is no joke, telling Asta it's better to avoid unknown variables when they can. And surprisingly, Asta agrees, saying that unexpected risks are the absolute worst. So for now, they'll do it Ray's way. This move confirms for Asta that Ray has sharp senses. Even with his own wide-range detection, the area is flooded with interference. But somehow, Ray found the perfect path to avoid it all. Asta has to admit Ray is far more competent than he first thought. For now, he decides to follow Ray's lead. Soon after, Ray announces they're almost at their destination. All they have to do is cross the swamp up ahead. Once they do, they'll hit the 1st base camp. But he tells them to rest up while he scouts the area before they cross. As they settle in, Asta can feel how nervous Oberyn is, and he doesn't blame him. That detour just cost them an entire day. Oberyn tells Asta they have no more time to waste, convinced the monster is hot on their trail. He says they have to find the destroyer fast and kill it before this situation spirals out of control. The dude is clearly blaming himself for everything, but instead of offering sympathy, Asta just agrees with him. He's not a psychiatrist, so why is this guy venting to him? Suddenly, Ray bursts back into camp, pure fear on his face. And trust me, this is where it gets crazy. He tells them they have to run because the ruler of the swamp is coming. It turns out hidden deep inside this forest is a hellish zone known only as the Depths. The swamp ruler is one of the ancient creatures that crawled out of that place. No one knows why it abandoned the depths for this forest. Ray can't believe their luck after all these years the swamp ruler shows up now of all times. Asta asks if they can just go around it. The marsh is massive, even if it is the king's private domain. But Ray immediately shuts that idea down. The second their feet touch that water, the monster will pick up their scent and chase them to the ends of the world. Oberyn asks Ray how much time they'd lose if they took another route. And Ray says it's not that simple, because they would need a massive detour. This is exactly why guides work so hard to keep a direct route through the wetlands open. If they have to turn back now, Ray reveals it will take them 10 days at the very least. And on the bad side, it could take a month. You and I both know that's a terrible choice, but for his safety, Oberyn sees no other option. Ray asks if he should prep the new route, but Asta cuts him off, telling him they are going straight through the wetlands. Ray is stunned. He tries to explain how dangerous this monster is, telling Asta it has killed countless soldiers, mages, and knights. But Asta just tells Ray he's getting it all wrong. They aren't just passing through, they are going to kill the ruler of the swamp. Ray realizes Asta is dead serious, and all he can do is sigh, in total frustration. Oberyn steps in, telling Asta he doesn't have to go this far for him, thankful that he even came out here in the first place. Asta cuts him short, saying something has to be done about the monster. He asks him if this is how he's going to act when they finally face the destroyer. Oberyn tries to make a dumb excuse, but Asta shuts him down. It's already decided. The next day, they are going to hunt the ruler of the swamp. Seeing that there's no changing Asta's mind, Oberyn tells him there might be a way he can assist in the fight. Asta asks him if he was just planning to stand on the sidelines before, but Oberyn reveals his talent hasn't fully awakened yet, but he is sure it can still help. He calls it a gift, and trust me, you're going to want to see what this power called overclock can do. It's a skill that unleashes someone's hidden potential, pushing them to their absolute max for a short time. Asta's eyes light up. He immediately tells Oberyn he needs to know everything about it. The next morning, Oberyn gets ready, but trust me, he's not prepared for this. Asta shows up, literally dragging Ray behind him. Turns out Ray tried to bolt, so Asta gave him another beatdown for his trouble. Asta asks him to pick his favorite tree, threatening to tie him up as monster bait if he tries running again. Seeing that Asta is dead serious, Ray quickly promises he's not going anywhere ever again. After breakfast, Asta's at 100%. He asks Oberyn if he's ready. The answer is yes. Ray, of course, says he's not. So Asta just tells them both to stay back while he handles this himself. Asta wades right into the swamp to get the beast's attention. The second you step in its territory, it knows. To really bait it out, he slices his own hand, letting his blood drip into the water. Seconds later, a huge whirlpool erupts. The beast emerges, and it's absolutely massive, towering over Asta. Oberyn and Ray are shaking in their boots, but Asta, he doesn't even flinch. Now watch this. Asta casually looks back at Oberyn and gives the signal. Oberyn unleashes the skill overclocking Asta's power. He feels raw power coursing through him, a sense of freedom he hasn't felt in a long, long time. The monster lunges, thinking it's an easy kill, but Asta is already airborne, taking the high ground. Asta actually thanks the monster. He's finally about to test out his true limits because of it. Oberyn explains he doesn't fully get how overclock works, only that it unlocks potential beyond all known limits. However, there's one very important rule he absolutely has to follow. Overclock only lasts for 5 minutes. Anything longer is dangerous. He has to win, and he has to win fast. So now Asta stands face to face with this absolute unit of a monster. He summons a swarm of magic circles, figuring 5 minutes is more than enough time for him to have some fun. He unleashes a fire spell, setting the beast ablaze with flames so intense they even burn on the water. Oberyn and Ray can't believe their eyes. Asta's fire is literally burning on the surface of the swamp. Ray is stunned. The monster is already reeling, which means Asta might actually have a shot at killing it. But then Ray spots trouble. He screams at Asta to be careful. The monster's about to roar. Before he can finish, the monster lets out a deafening roar, and the flames just vanish. Asta figures it out instantly. That roar can completely disrupt the natural flow of mana. Honestly, he's not surprised. He'd expect nothing less from the ruler of this swamp. Just then, Ray screams a warning. Don't look in its eyes for more than 3 seconds or it'll freeze your mana. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. Asta is furious. Ray's only telling him this crucial detail now. Turns out Ray has always been terrified of the Swamp King's ability to disrupt and completely freeze magic. On top of that, its skin is so tough it can even repel a knight's ether. That's why Ray's master told him the best strategy against this thing is to simply run away. But watching Asta now, Ray starts to believe he can actually win, clenching his fist, ready to believe. Asta glares back at Ray, promising they'll be having a discussion later, and Ray nervously agrees. But first, they need to survive. Since the monster's eyes are the problem, Asta decides to solve it. He lunges forward and slams 2 rubies straight into its eyes, causing it to scream in agony. The beast claws at its own face in pain, and when it finally opens them, it sees Asta flying right at it. Boom, Asta lands a massive punch to its gut using collision strike. A shockwave rips through its body, but it tanks the hit. Asta has to admit it, this thing is seriously tough. But he tells it straight up, you're way too slow. It's time to end this once and for all. Asta says it's been entertaining, so he'll show it something special, gathering a huge amount of mana for a new skill, Explosive Annihilation. The attack lands, and for a second nothing happens. Then the beast starts to swell from the inside until it just explodes. The monster is gone. Asta collapses into the water, completely unconscious from total exhaustion. He's just disappointed a single monster was enough to push him to his absolute limit. What a battle we just saw. He can't help but wonder if he'd used this on Declan back then. He's sure the guy would have blocked it. But there's no way he would have walked away clean. That force field would have shattered. The raw explosion tears everything apart. Asta calls it Explosive Annihilation for a reason. It obliterates anything in its path. But Asta wasn't alone. You and I are about to meet the guy lurking in the shadows. And look who it is. Kellogg. He's genuinely stunned. Asta took down the ancient beast he set up as bait. And he did it by going head-to-head, straight up brawling and destroying the monster's eyes. Kellogg wonders if Asta's a mage, but the sheer amount of mana he's throwing around, it's just way too high. At the same time, the guy doesn't fight like a martial artist. Even Kellogg admits he's seriously impressed. In fact, for a split second there, Kellogg actually felt a shiver of fear, which makes him laugh like a complete maniac. The thrill of the hunt is on. It suddenly hits him. Asta is a hunter just like him. He starts wondering how he looks in a fellow hunter's eyes. Asta, however, just realizes how dangerous this all is. He needs to step up his game. Later, he finally wakes up and asks Arn how long he was out. Oberon is shocked to see him awake, telling him it's been about 2 hours. Asta groans that his head is killing him. Oberon explains it's just the side effect of using overlock. He tells him not to worry. He kept it short, so the strain shouldn't be too bad. But yeah, he's probably going to feel like garbage for the rest of the day. Asta feels like he's dying on the inside. His hands are still shaking from the fight. He knows he would have drowned if Oberon and Ray hadn't pulled him out. And speaking of Ray, where is he? Right on cue, Ray pops out of a bush, saying not to worry, he's not running away again. Asta just tells him to shut his mouth and say where he was. Ray admits he was poking around the Swamp Lord's corpse looking for anything valuable. He then asks what Asta's planning to do with the body. Asta tells him to just take it as payment for saving his life. He even tosses him a subspace pouch to carry it, and Ray is absolutely ecstatic. Asta plans on giving him one of the pouches he swiped from that black market dealer. While Ray is celebrating, Oberon asks Asta if he's sure. The remains of a Swamp Lord are worth a fortune. Asta just shrugs it off, saying he has no use for it, and Ray needs to make a living. Oberon is completely blown away by this. He thinks Asta is this incredibly noble and kind-hearted man. But Oberon is so wrong. You and I are about to see Asta's real cold-blooded reasoning. The beast's hide is famous for blocking ether, meaning a robe made from it would sell for an insane price. The catch: sometimes those magical properties completely vanish the moment the monster dies. That's why Ray's blade cut right through it so easily. And the poor guy has no clue. Basically, Asta just gave him a giant pile of worthless junk. Oberon asks what's next, and Asta says they're behind schedule. But Ray thinks they can afford to rest for at least another day. Asta's not interested in resting. He wants to get moving now. That night they reach Base Camp 1, and Asta notes how dark it is. Ray explains they don't light fires at night. The light would just be a dinner bell for monsters. He suggests they find the base camp keeper to get a place to stay for the night. Asta asks what a base camp keeper is, and Ray says it's the mercenary group that owns the camp. Turns out they take a cut of all materials from every mercenary that stays here. In other words, they're just a bunch of glorified bandits running a protection racket. And just when you think they're safe, a voice cuts through the dark, calling Ray out for talking trash. He looks up and sees the base chief Fixer. Even Oberon is intimidated by this guy's presence. His group's name Aviat. Fixer leaps down from the watchtower, landing right in front of them. He holds out a hand to Asta, who just stares at him, until Fixer explains he's trying to shake hands. Asta finally grabs his hand, and the two immediately let a little bit of their aura leak out in a power flex. After their silent duel, Fixer says he came to greet them because he has a proposition. Trust me, you're going to want to hear this. He heard they were heading back to Base Camp 4, and Oberyn immediately wants to know how. Fixer throws Rye under the bus, saying he blabbed about scamming some naive mage. You and I know how this goes, but that's not his real concern. He wants to know if they can tag along to Base Camp 4. Asta is surprised, but Fixer lays it out simple: if Base Camp 4 falls, their camp is next. They have a stake in this fight. Asta doesn't hate the idea. More help is always a good thing in this world. He's about to agree, but Oberyn cuts him off, flat out rejecting the deal. Asta is completely floored. Fixer demands to know why. Oberyn explains the area around the 4th base camp has become a literal land of death, far worse than anyone imagined. Fixer's tone drops, asking if he's being told he can't go because it's a death trap. Now watch this. Oberyn confirms, and Fixer just snaps, unleashing a crushing aura and calling him an arrogant mage. He is absolutely furious, screaming about who gave him the right to decide when he survived on nothing but his own sword skills. Fixer says he might look like a sellsword, but he and his squad have things to protect, lines they will not cross. At this moment, Oberyn is already breaking under the pressure as Fixer yells that they have the same right to defend their home. Fixer turns his back, disappointed. He expected more from the headmaster's disciple. He tells Oberyn they'll find their own place to sleep so he can just go on ahead. The whole vibe gets super awkward, and Asta decides to hit the showers. Later that night, after his team is asleep, Asta tracks down Fixer in his office. Fixer asks what he wants. Asta says nothing serious, he just wants to talk. And here's where it gets interesting. Fixer calls him a kid with a lot of nerve, then Asta asks his age. He says he'll be 50 next year. Asta drops a bombshell, casually mentioning he was 50 the year before. Fixer doesn't believe a word of it, and tells Asta to leave if he's just there to mess with him. But Asta gets serious, saying, so Asta makes an offer: just come with them. Ignore what Oberyn said, because going together is the smart move. Fixer is shocked. He thought Oberyn was the one calling all the shots. Asta reveals the truth. Oberyn is just a figurehead. He, on the other hand, is not. Asta admits he acts his age, and wanted Fixer along ever since he saw that powerful aura he unleashed earlier. He could tell Fixer was experienced, and knights with that kind of power are rare finds. Fixer gets it immediately. Asta wants to use his men as meat shields. And Asta doesn't even deny it. Fixer asks if this is a formal request. Asta just says he's giving him exactly what he wanted, a way in. Fixer agrees, but says he's sending the young mercenaries home. He's only taking the veterans. Asta compliments him, saying it's commendable to sacrifice himself for the next generation. But there's a catch. Fixer needs Rye to guide the young ones because he's the best. He's even willing to trade their own guide for him. Asta just asks why he's even bothering with all this. Fixer explains their guide isn't skilled enough to get past the ruler of the swamps and the wetlands. Asta smirks, telling him that's not something he needs to worry about. Fixer is totally confused. Asta asks him a simple question. How does he think they got to the 1st base camp? Going around would have taken them to the 3rd. Fixer is stunned. Did the ruler of the swamp retreat? Asta's reply. He sent that monster to the afterlife, shocking Fixer to his core. The very next morning, the young mercenaries are packing up to head home. Fixer admits his scout already confirmed the news. The ruler of the swamp is dead. He looks at Asta, demanding to know who the hell he is. Asta's response is ice cold. He tells the guy he's his employer and asks if he's made up his mind. Fixer agrees. Just get the young ones out safely. Asta promises he will. Fixer asks what he wants in return. Asta is blunt: men who can be cannon fodder, just like he said. You and I just saw a deal with the devil get signed. After this, he says Fixer is free to do as he pleases. Then Asta tells him to drop the formal speech. After all, a 2-year age gap means absolutely nothing. Fixer's jaw hits the floor. Is Asta really 2 years older, or is he some ancient mage who chugged a youth potion? One of Fixer's guys runs up, reporting they're all set to go. So Fixer barks out the order to get moving. They can't keep their client waiting. The men gather up. Fixer splits the squad. Half the veterans are heading deep into the forest while the rookies handle the perimeter. He gives them the big speech, telling them to uphold the honor of Aviat. The mercenaries start shouting, volunteering for the tough jobs. Fixer sees the hype and tells them to shut it. He points at the younger guys, saying he doesn't want to hear a peep from them. Just get going. But even with Fixer pushing them, they refuse to leave. And Asta is watching this whole scene unfold. Just then, Rye appears, asking Asta if the Aviat mercenaries are really coming with them. Asta confirms it. Rye thinks this is awesome. These guys are monster hunters who've guarded this camp for almost 200 years. Hearing that AA gets it. These are guys who know how to get a win no matter what. Rai is confident he can handle any monster but admits having these mercenaries along will be a huge help. AA hopes he's right and turns to Ray and Oberon asking if they're packed. Oberon says he's good to go, but Asta jokes he won't need anything if he's already a dead man. Ray snaps back, telling Asta not to jinx him, then immediately asks to join his crew if they make it out alive. Asta smirks. The dude is literally betting his life on this. But honestly, he's not wrong. Asta is his best shot at survival. So he tells Rai he can do whatever he wants. Rai thanks him, promising to give it his all, but he's not about to sell his soul for it. Asta then finds Fixer and asks if he can persuade someone for him before they head out. Asta asks who and where. Fixer tells him they're at the second base camp. He needs Asta to go there and convince the base camp chief Halig to join them. Even if Haligu can't come, Fixer wants to borrow his vice chief, who's a tactical genius. Meanwhile, over at the second base camp, they're also gearing up to move to the fourth camp. Halig's vice reports they just need to clear the facilities. But Halig says forget it, if goblins move in, they'll just take it back. But you and I both know what the vice is thinking, that only works if they actually come back alive. Halig starts monologuing about how pointless it all feels, how he thought being chief meant he had it all. He tells his vice he hopes to die quickly so the vice can take his spot and understand what he means. The vice snaps back at him. He tells him to stop with the morbid jokes, treating death like it's nothing. He doesn't like this out-of-character act, and Halig just replies that maybe it's because his time is up. His vice is stunned. It finally clicks. Halig plans on joining Fixer's suicidal mission. He screams at Halig that the destroyer isn't some normal monster. It's already mutating the entire forest. He asks why he's suddenly throwing himself into this mess when he was never that kind of person. Halig asks his vice what kind of person he thinks he is. The vice says he's a guy who chases a big payday. Halig tells him every veteran warrior will be there, which means the battle itself is the ultimate prize. His vice still thinks it's a terrible idea and begs him to reconsider. He tells Halig his men are ready to bail. All he has to do is call off the move to the fourth camp. Halig just looks at him and says he can see it clearly. His vice is scared of dying. The guy doesn't deny it. He says he has no plans on meeting his ancestors anytime soon. Then Halig drops a bombshell. He tells him to become the new chief so he can sit in the chair at least once. He's free to run things his way. The vice just stands there, stunned, as Halig officially declares him the new chief of the second base camp. He even tells him he can rename the camp to whatever he wants. And just when you think this is some dramatic farewell, a twisted arm bursts through Halig's chest from behind. It's Kellogg. He laughs like a maniac, telling Halig he's sending him and his men to the afterlife. With his last bit of strength, Halig shoves his new chief, launching him high and away from the chaos. The new chief can only watch as his mentor is struck down by Kellogg. Halig's last command, live on. You're the chief now. And wow, what a place to leave it. Let me know if you want the next part in the comments below. So make sure you subscribe, hit that bell, and I will see you in the next one.